Hey guys, tonight we begin with the extraordinary journey of the Indigenous Peoples of America, a vast land filled with towering mountains, endless forests and vast deserts, where one man's survival was determined by the harshness of the wilderness, while another's was defined by golden palaces and the weight of empires. From the icy cold of the Arctic to the fertile lands of South America, these ancient cultures thrived and shaped the continent. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. America, home to some of the most beautiful sights in the world. A diverse land with tall mountains, bountiful forests and arid deserts. Prior to the arrival of Europeans, Native Americans inhabited every region from the Arctic to the tip of South America. Some nations could be very powerful. They constructed giant temples to worship their gods and even sacrificed thousands of people. Others lived nomadically throughout the vast lands of the Americas. Some nations were peaceful while others waged wars of mass destruction. Though many of these great nations are gone, they live on through their beautiful art, impressive architecture, and rich culture. America, home to some of the most beautiful sights in the world. A diverse land with tall mountains, bountiful forests, and arid deserts. Prior to the arrival of Europeans, Native Americans inhabited every region from the Arctic to the tip of South America. Some nations were very powerful, building vast temples to honor their gods, while others lived quietly, nomadically, flowing with the land. These cultures were peaceful and serene, yet full of stories and traditions that have lived on long after their time. Imagine the gentle sound of the wind passing through the tall trees as these early settlers made their way across the land. It was not a single journey, but many different ones, spanning thousands of years. A continuous movement across time and space. The people who crossed into the Americas didn't come in one big wave. Instead, it was a gradual process, a slow dance between the land and its people flowing with the rhythms of nature. The first people arrived through the Bering Land Bridge, a vast stretch of land, wide and welcoming. It wasn't a tiny ice bridge you might picture, but a grand and open space filled with possibilities. These early travellers, with their peaceful way of life, brought with them a deep connection to the earth, moving with the seasons, adapting with each passing year. As they crossed over, the land was wild and untamed. The mighty woolly mammoths roamed alongside saber-toothed cats, their large forms casting long shadows in the quiet, misty mornings. The giant sloths meandered slowly, and the short-faced bears roamed the plains, standing taller than any human had ever seen. The air was thick with the sounds of wild creatures, and the land seemed to breathe with an ancient, timeless pulse. Yet amid these giants of the past, humans walked softly, carving their own path through the land. They built their homes from the earth, their fires flickering in the quiet night. Each night they told stories around the fire, stories of their ancestors who had crossed from far-off lands, finding their way to this untamed place. Their art reflected the world around them with images of animals, gods, and spirits that were part of their world. As the glaciers began to retreat, the world slowly began to change. The once frozen lands were now open and full of new possibilities. These early settlers began to spread out, moving across the land, their journey quiet and unhurried. The land, untouched and raw, responded to their presence in a way that was peaceful, welcoming. There were no roads, no cities. There were only paths marked by the seasons, the slow passage of time. In the Mississippi Valley, hunter-gatherers began to build their homes from the earth. These were not hurried, hasty constructions. These were carefully shaped earth mounds, gently rising from the earth, as if the land itself had been moulded to embrace them. Their homes were simple, their lives humble, but full of meaning. In Louisiana, another group began adding to their earth structures, slowly over hundreds of years. Their mounds grew with time, marking the passing of generations in a quiet testament to their lives. As the land changed, so did its people. Some began to plant their crops in neat rows, while others continued their way of life, roaming from place to place. The Maya, Olmec, and Aztec built civilizations that rose from the land, their temples reaching toward the sky, their people working with the earth to feed their growing cities. But despite the size of their cities, there was still a gentleness to their ways. In the quiet stillness of their world, there was time for reflection, for rest. These ancient people understood the slow rhythm of life, where everything had its place and time. The great Mesoamerican pyramids and temples were not just structures. They were expressions of a culture deeply rooted in the land, in nature, and in the spiritual life that flowed through everything. The Aztec, with their vast city of Tenochtitlan, were warriors, yes, but they too understood the balance of life. They built their cities carefully, like gardeners planting their crops. Each piece of stone, each monument, was part of a larger story that stretched back to the beginning of time. The sacrifice of human life, though unsettling to modern minds, was seen as a way to sustain the universe, to keep the delicate balance of life intact. These rituals were performed in quiet reverence, as if the world itself depended on it. Through it all, the Native American peoples remained a part of this grand and ancient story, living in harmony with the land, adapting to each new season, and carrying forward the traditions and knowledge of their ancestors. They were peaceful, thoughtful, and full of stories that would be passed down for generations. As time passed, the Native American tribes spread throughout the continent. Some stayed close to the land, while others built more complex societies and powerful empires. Mesoamerica became the cradle of some of the most impressive civilizations of the ancient world. The Olmecs, for example, were pioneers in building giant stone heads, each a unique piece of artwork that still stands as a testament to their creative ingenuity. These massive heads were not just artistic endeavours, but symbols of leadership and power. The Olmecs, though mysterious in many ways, created the foundation upon which later cultures would flourish. They were not a culture that rushed through life. No, they understood the importance of time, taking years to craft these heads, shaping them with a patience that is rarely seen today. Their stonework, their tools, their monuments, everything was done with careful hands and thoughtful minds, paying tribute to the gods and the land that supported them. As we move further in time, the Maya civilization rises. In the lush jungles of Mesoamerica, the Maya built cities that were marvels of architecture and science. The Maya pyramids, rising majestically against the horizon, stood as symbols of their advanced knowledge of astronomy and mathematics. Their knowledge of the stars was not just for navigation, but for understanding the rhythm of life itself, how the planets and the moon moved in cycles that influenced everything from planting crops to celebrating festivals. The Maya calendar, with its precise measurements and deep understanding of time, is still revered as one of the greatest achievements of ancient science. In the quiet of the night, you can almost hear the whispers of ancient astronomers, watching the stars carefully, counting the days, and marking the movements of the heavens. Their work was not hurried. They took their time to understand the world around them, observing, calculating, and living in harmony with the universe. In the midst of all this knowledge and construction, the Maya also had a deep spiritual connection with the earth. They believed the land was sacred. They treated it with reverence. Their art, their pyramids, their writing, all were tied to their belief in the gods, the spirits of nature, and the eternal cycle of life. But as impressive as the Maya were, they were not alone. The Aztecs, who followed in the footsteps of these earlier civilizations, built an empire that stretched across central Mexico. The city of Tenochtitlan, their capital, was a place of wonder. Built on an island in the middle of a lake, the city was connected by canals and causeways, creating a cityscape unlike any other in the world. The Aztecs too were great builders, and their grand temples and marketplaces stood as symbols of their power and influence. Yet in all their grandeur, the Aztecs were also very much in tune with the world around them. They understood the land, the seasons, and the forces of nature that governed their lives. Their rituals, though seemingly harsh by modern standards, were performed with a deep sense of respect for the gods and the forces that shaped their world. Each ceremony, each offering was made with the intention of maintaining balance in the universe, an effort to ensure that the sun would continue to rise, that the crops would grow, and that the world would remain in harmony. Though the Aztecs are often remembered for their fierce warriors and their ritual sacrifices, there was also a beauty in their culture. They painted, they sculpted, and they created intricate pieces of art that have survived for centuries. Their art, like their temples, was meant to honour the gods, but it also served as a reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of balance. As the centuries passed and the Inca Empire rose in the south, the same deep connection to the land and the gods remained. The Inca, who thrived in the Andes Mountains of South America, were master builders, creating cities and roads that still stand today. Their stonework was so precise that even after centuries of earthquakes, their structures remained intact. The Machu Picchu, their most famous city, is a testament to their architectural genius and their deep understanding of the land. The Inca, like the Maya and the Aztecs, were guided by a sense of spirituality and respect for the natural world. They understood the importance of balance in all things: earth, water, fire, and air. Their rulers were seen as divine, chosen by the gods to maintain the balance of the world. And in a land as harsh as the Andes, where the air was thin and the landscape unforgiving, the Inca survived and thrived, building an empire that stretched from the southern parts of Colombia to Chile. Throughout all of these great civilizations, the Native Americans lived in harmony with the land. They did not rush through life, but instead moved slowly, carefully, and with purpose. They understood that life was not about speed, but about balance. Whether they were building pyramids, carving stone heads, or weaving intricate blankets, they did so with patience and reverence for the earth that sustained them. Even as European explorers began to arrive on the shores of the Americas, these ancient cultures continued to thrive, adapting to the changes around them. The Navajo, Apache, and Pueblo tribes lived peacefully, weaving their traditions and art into the fabric of their daily lives. The Navajo created stunning jewelry from silver, while the Apache were known for their fierce independence and spiritual ceremonies. The Pueblo built multi-story dwellings, creating entire cities from adobe and stone, and still practice agricultural techniques passed down through generations. But their world was not without conflict. As the centuries passed, wars would arise, and the lands that had once been so peaceful would face new challenges. Yet even in the face of conflict, these Native American tribes continued to hold their connection to the earth and to their ancestors, never forgetting the wisdom passed down through generations. As the centuries rolled by, the Native American tribes lived in harmony with their environment. They carried the wisdom of the land within their hearts, knowing that to survive they must respect the earth and all its creatures. The natural world was their teacher, their provider, and their guide. Every season brought its own set of challenges and rewards, and the tribes adapted, always in tune with the rhythms of the land. In the northern reaches of the continent, where the cold winds of the Arctic and the biting chill of the winters ruled, the Inuit people thrived. With their sharp eyes and keen sense of survival, they built their homes out of snow and ice, igloos that kept them warm even in the harshest of conditions. Their skill in hunting and fishing allowed them to survive in a land where resources were scarce. With the coming of winter, they would turn their attention to the sea, hunting seals, whales, and walrus, their bodies perfectly adapted to the cold climate. For thousands of years, the Inuit had mastered the art of living in this frigid world. Their knowledge passed down from one generation to the next. They didn't rush through life. They moved at the pace of the seasons, taking only what they needed and leaving the rest to thrive. Their spirituality was deeply connected to the land, the sea, and the animals they hunted. Each animal they caught, each piece of the land they harvested, was treated with respect and reverence. As we travel south, we find ourselves in the heart of the Great Plains, home to the Lakota and Dakota tribes. These people were true to the spirit of the land, living in harmony with the buffalo, which provided them with food, clothing, and shelter. They lived in teepees, portable dwellings that could be easily assembled and disassembled as they followed the herds. The buffalo was more than just a source of sustenance. It was central to their way of life. The Lakota people would follow the buffalo, living off the land, hunting and gathering and moving as the herds moved. They were experts in tracking and knew every step the buffalo took. Their culture revolved around the buffalo, and they celebrated the buffalo hunt as one of the most sacred of their traditions. The animals, the earth, the sky, everything was connected in a delicate balance that the Lakota and other tribes in the plains understood. At night, as the stars filled the sky, they would sit around their campfires telling stories that had been passed down for generations. These stories told of their ancestors' journeys, of the sacred land they called home, and of the spirits that watched over them. They knew that their survival depended on their respect for the land, and they passed that wisdom down generation after generation. As the seasons passed, tribes grew in numbers and strength, their cultures flourishing in different corners of the continent. The Navajo tribe, for instance, in the southwest, lived a life deeply rooted in the land. Their hogans were carefully built homes made of wood and mud, shaped by the hands of those who lived in them. The Navajo were expert weavers, creating intricate rugs and blankets that were as much works of art as they were practical items for survival. The designs were symbolic, reflecting the land, the mountains, and the spirit of the earth itself. The Navajo also developed a unique style of jewelry making, especially with silver. This art was passed down through the generations, each piece telling a story of the land, of the people, and of the sky. Every design, every stone had a purpose, a connection to the world they lived in. They were masters of adaptation, able to thrive in the harsh desert landscape, all the while maintaining a deep connection to their roots and traditions. To the east, in the Mississippi Valley, the mound builders had long been constructing their great earthen mounds, tall, spiralling structures that served as burial sites, ceremonial grounds, and places of leadership. These mounds were carefully built over centuries, one layer at a time, with each addition marking the passing of time and the growth of their civilization. Their lives were simple yet profound. They built their homes from earth, from wood, and from the materials provided by nature. The mounds, which still stand today as monuments to their culture, served as a reminder of their connection to the land and to each other. Even as the mounds grew in size and complexity, the people remained humble, living lives full of meaning and respect for the earth that supported them. As time went on, these ancient tribes spread out across the continent, each adapting to their unique environments. Some created grand civilizations, building cities and empires that would be remembered for generations to come. Others lived simpler lives, moving from place to place, always in tune with the land and the seasons. But they all shared one thing in common: a deep reverence for the earth and a commitment to live in balance with it. As time went on, the land continued to shape the lives of the people who inhabited it. The Great Plains, where the Sioux and other tribes lived, remained an area of great significance. The buffalo, once plentiful and roaming in herds that seemed to stretch endlessly, were vital to the lives of the tribes. For the Sioux and Cheyenne, these majestic animals provided food, clothing and tools, everything they needed to survive. The buffalo hunt was not merely an act of survival, it was a spiritual journey, a deep and sacred ritual. The Sioux believed that the buffalo were sacred, that they were gifts from the earth and from the spirits that watched over them. To hunt a buffalo was to honor its spirit, to acknowledge the great circle of life, where everything had a purpose and everything was interconnected. When the buffalo roamed the plains, so did the people. They followed the herds, living in teepees which were easy to set up and take down, perfectly suited to the nomadic lifestyle. The teepees were made of animal skins stretched over wooden poles, designed to keep the warmth in during the cold winter months and provide shelter from the harsh winds. It was a simple yet effective design, reflecting the people's ability to adapt to their environment with a deep respect for the land. The Cheyenne, another powerful tribe of the plains, had similar practices and beliefs. They too saw the buffalo as sacred, and their warriors, like the Sioux, were renowned for their bravery and skill in battle. The Cheyenne would often engage in ceremonial dances and rituals before a hunt, praying for a successful outcome and for the spirits of the buffalo to guide their arrows. The land was not just home to animals and people, it was alive with spirits. Every rock, every tree, every mountain had its own spirit. Sacred sites like Black Hills for the Lakota Sioux were considered places of great power. These sites were the heart of the land, where the spirits dwelled, and where the people could connect with the divine forces that governed the universe. When the people gathered around the campfire, they would sing songs and tell stories of the spirits, of their ancestors, and of the journeys they had taken together. As we move south to the deserts of the southwest, the Navajo and Hopi people had a different, yet equally profound, connection to the land. The Navajo, who lived in the Four Corners region, believed that they came from the earth itself, emerging from the ground like the plants that grew around them. They lived in hogans, round homes made of wood and clay, each facing the east so that the sun could enter in the morning. Their spiritual beliefs were deeply tied to the land. They believed that the holy people had instructed them to maintain balance in the world, to live in harmony with nature and the spirits. Every action, from planting crops to making jewelry, was done with respect for the earth, for the animals, and for the spirits. The Navajo were also skilled artisans, creating beautiful silverwork and woven rugs, which told stories of their lives and their connection to the world around them. The Hopi, who lived in Arizona, also had a deep connection to the land. They lived in multi-story adobe homes, built into the sides of cliffs, which provided protection from the harsh desert heat. The Hopi were known for their intricate pottery and kachina dolls, which were believed to represent the spirits that govern the earth and the heavens. The kachinas were an important part of their religious beliefs, and ceremonies and dances were held to honor these spirits, to ensure a good harvest and a safe life. The Southwest, with its stark desert landscapes, was not easy to survive in. Yet the Navajo and Hopi thrived, living in a land that could be unforgiving. Their lives were marked by rituals and ceremonies that were deeply tied to the rhythms of nature, the changing of the seasons, the planting and harvesting of crops, and the movement of the stars across the sky. They understood the importance of patience and respect for the land, knowing that survival depended on harmony with the earth. As we move further south to Mesoamerica, the great civilizations of the Maya, Aztec, and Olmec civilizations developed. These civilizations were marked by monumental achievements in architecture, mathematics, and astronomy. The Olmecs were the first to carve large stone heads, thought to represent their rulers or gods. These heads, each with unique features, are still a mystery today, but they stand as a testament to the Olmec's artistry and power. The Maya, who lived in the lush jungles of southern Mexico and Central America, were among the most advanced civilizations in the ancient world. They built towering pyramids, created a detailed calendar, and studied the stars with remarkable precision. Their understanding of time and the universe was far ahead of their contemporaries, and they built cities that were marvels of engineering and planning. The Maya believed that time was cyclical, and they used their understanding of the stars to predict events like eclipses, which they saw as messages from the gods. The Aztecs, who came after the Maya, were known for their fierce warriors and their grand city of Tenochtitlan, which was built on an island in the middle of a lake. The Aztecs ruled over a vast empire, and their culture was deeply tied to their gods, the most important of whom was the sun god, Huitzilopochtli. The Aztecs believed that the sun required nourishment in the form of human blood, and so, like the Maya, they practiced human sacrifice as part of their religious rituals. Despite the brutality of these practices, the Aztecs and Maya were not just warriors, they were also artists, creating stunning works of art that depicted their gods, their rulers, and their world. Their pyramids, their temples, and their art were all created with the belief that they were honouring the gods and ensuring the survival of their people. As we drift further through time, we find ourselves on the west coast, where the Pacific Northwest was home to many great tribes, like the Nez Perce and the Chinook. This lush, rainy region was a land of abundance, with towering cedar trees, salmon-filled rivers, and fertile land that could sustain entire nations. The people here lived in large, permanent longhouses built from cedar wood which provided shelter from the persistent rain. The Nez Perce, for example, had a unique culture that revolved around the land and the animals they shared it with. They were known for their intricate beadwork, weaving, and pottery, creating beautiful objects that told the story of their people and their connection to the earth. Their spirituality was deeply tied to nature, and their rituals were performed in sync with the changing seasons, the migration of the salmon, and the rhythms of the forest. The Chinook, living along the riverbanks of the Columbia River, had mastered the art of fishing. They used canoes to travel along the river, and their knowledge of the waters and the fish that swam in them was unparalleled. Like the Nez Perce, the Chinook also used the resources of the land to make their homes, their tools, and their art. They lived in harmony with the river, understanding the cycles of the water and how it connected to the earth. Moving further south, we enter the California coast, where the Chumash and other tribes lived in the fertile land of the Channel Islands. These people were deeply connected to the sea, relying on it for food, transportation, and spiritual connection. The Chumash built their homes out of reeds and grasses, weaving them into simple yet effective domed structures that blended seamlessly with the landscape. They lived in small, close-knit communities, gathering food from the sea and the land. The Chumash were also known for their intricate rock art, which adorned the cliffs of the Channel Islands. These symbols were not just artistic expressions, they were representations of their spiritual beliefs, their connection to the earth, and their relationship with the divine forces that governed their lives. Their art was not only a means of communication, but also a way of honouring the spirits that guided them. As we continue our journey south, we encounter the Pueblos of the Southwest, who had developed a complex agricultural society long before the arrival of Europeans. The Puebloans lived in multi-story stone dwellings built into the sides of cliffs, which protected them from the harsh desert sun and predators. Their homes were a marvel of architecture, carefully designed to provide shelter, storage, and a place to worship the gods. The Pueblos practiced agriculture, growing corn, beans, and squash, and they developed an intricate system of irrigation to ensure that their crops thrived in the arid desert. Their lives were closely tied to the land, and their spiritual practices revolved around the natural world, the sun, the moon, the earth, and their sky. Their ceremonies, often held in kivas, sacred underground chambers, were a means of connecting with the divine, seeking guidance for their crops and their lives. In the southwest, the Hopi people also developed a deep connection to the land. The Hopi lived in the high desert, where the sun beat down relentlessly, but they had learned how to use the land's resources wisely. Their agricultural techniques were sophisticated, and they built terraces and irrigation systems to grow crops in the dry soil. They believed that the land was sacred, and they saw themselves as the caretakers of the earth, ensuring that it remained fertile for future generations. The Hopi also practiced a variety of ceremonies and rituals that were designed to ensure the balance of the natural world. These ceremonies, often held during the changing of the seasons, were meant to bring harmony and prosperity to the land. The Kachina dolls they created were not just toys. They were representations of the spirits that inhabited the natural world, and they were used in ceremonies to call upon the spirits for protection and guidance. As we travel further south, we come to the Inca Empire, which stretched along the western coast of South America. The Inca were known for their advanced engineering, their ability to build terraces in the mountains, and their expertise in agriculture. The Machu Picchu, built by the Inca high in the Andes Mountains, stands as a testament to their architectural brilliance and their deep connection to the land. The Inca built their empire on the belief that their ruler, the Sapa Inca, was the son of the sun god. His authority came from the gods, and his rule was seen as the divine guidance of the earth. The Inca were skilled farmers, able to grow crops in the harshest conditions, and they created a network of roads and bridges that connected their empire from the coast to the high mountains. The Inca also had a unique system of records, using quipus, knotted strings, to keep track of their resources, trade, and people. Their advanced understanding of mathematics and engineering allowed them to build cities and structures that would withstand earthquakes, a testament to their knowledge and ingenuity. As we move further south, we find ourselves in the Amazon rainforest, home to countless indigenous tribes that have lived in harmony with the lush, dense jungle for thousands of years. Here, life is deeply intertwined with nature. The tribes that inhabit the Amazon have a profound knowledge of the forest, its plants, its animals, its rivers. They know which plants can heal, which fruits are safe to eat, and which animals should be avoided. These tribes, such as the Yanomami, the Kayapo, and the Tupi, have lived in the forest for generations, their traditions passed down from elders to younger generations. They are experts in survival, relying on their knowledge of the land to sustain themselves. Their homes, called malokas, are made from materials found in the forest: palm leaves, bamboo, and vines. These houses are built to blend in with the natural surroundings, offering protection from these elements while still allowing the people to feel at one with the forest. The Yanomami are one of the largest and most well-known tribes in the Amazon. Their society is organized around extended families, with each family living in a communal maloka. These large, circular structures are built with a central fire pit, where the family gathers to cook and tell stories. The Yanomami live in relative isolation, maintaining their traditions and way of life despite the encroaching influence of the modern world. They rely on hunting, fishing, and gathering for food, using bows and arrows, spears, and traps to catch their prey. In the mornings, you can imagine the Yanomami waking up to the soft sounds of the rainforest, birds chirping, insects buzzing, and the distant calls of monkeys. The tribe moves through the forest with practiced ease, their footsteps light on the ground as they track their prey. The forest, in many ways, is like a sacred temple to them. Everything is connected, and they treat the land with deep reverence. Further north, in the Great Plains of North America, we encounter the Plains Indians, such as the Cheyenne, Comanche, and Sioux. These tribes, known for their incredible horsemanship, once roamed the vast grasslands in search of buffalo. Their way of life was dictated by the movement of the buffalo herds, and that they followed these majestic animals, living in teepees that could be easily assembled and disassembled as they moved. The Sioux, in particular, were skilled warriors. They were masters of the bow and arrow, and their warriors were feared across the plains. But despite their warrior culture, the Sioux were also deeply spiritual. They believed in the Great Spirit, and their lives were centered around their connection to nature and the spirits that guided them. Each year, the Sioux would perform the sundial, hence, a ritual that was meant to bring the people closer to the Great Spirit and ensure the prosperity of their people. The Comanche were another formidable tribe of the plains. They were known for their incredible speed on horseback, and their warriors could outpace even the swiftest horses. The Comanche lived a life of constant movement, following the buffalo across the plains, and their horses became an integral part of their culture. They were a nomadic people, and their teepees were perfectly suited to their lifestyle, offering shelter from the harsh winds and sun. As we journey to the east, we find ourselves in the Woodlands region, home to tribes like the Iroquois, Algonquin, and Cherokee. These tribes lived in the dense forests, where they hunted, fished, and gathered food. Unlike the plains tribes, the Woodlands people built permanent villages, often situated near rivers and lakes. Their homes, called longhouses, were large rectangular structures made of wood, bark and thatch, and they served as communal living spaces for extended families. The Iroquois in particular were a powerful confederacy of tribes that dominated the northeastern part of North America. They were known for their complex system of government, which was based on a council of 56 chiefs from the 5 nations of the Iroquois Confederacy. The Iroquois were also skilled warriors, and their tactics were often feared by neighbouring tribes. But despite their warlike reputation, they also had a deep sense of community and balance. Their culture placed great importance on the welfare of the group, and they held peace in the highest regard. In the south, the Cherokee lived in the dense forests of the Appalachian Mountains. They were skilled farmers, growing crops such as corn, beans and squash, and they also hunted and fished for food. The Cherokee lived in wattle and daub homes, which were made of wooden frames filled in with mud and clay. These homes were designed to keep the people warm in the winter and cool in the summer. The Cherokee also had a complex system of government, with a council of leaders who made decisions for the tribe. One of the most significant contributions of the Cherokee was their creation of a written language. Led by Sequoyah, the Cherokee developed a syllabary that allowed them to write down their language and preserve their stories and traditions. This was a remarkable achievement, and it allowed the Cherokee to document their history and pass down their knowledge to future generations. As we journey westward to the Great Basin, we find ourselves in the rugged and dry landscapes that shape the lives of the Ute, Pavant, and Shoshone tribes. These peoples, who lived in what is now Utah, Nevada, and Idaho, had an incredible ability to survive in the harshest of conditions. The land, arid and unforgiving, was both a challenge and a source of sustenance. The people of the Great Basin understood the rhythms of the earth, and their deep connection to the land allowed them to thrive where others might have struggled. The Ute were a nomadic tribe, living in small family groups and moving frequently to find food and resources. They were skilled hunters and gatherers, relying on the sagebrush, bitterbrush, and other plants that grew in the desert. The Ute also hunted deer, elk, and bison, using tools crafted from stone and bone. Their lives were simple yet full of purpose as they followed the seasons and adapted to the changing environment. The Shoshone people, like the Ute, lived in the Great Basin, but their territory extended into parts of what is now California and Wyoming. They were also hunter-gatherers, skilled in navigating the desert and mountains. The Shoshone were particularly known for their expertise in fishing, using baskets to catch fish from the rivers and streams that cut through their land. They were also adept at using plants for both food and medicine, a knowledge passed down through generations. The Pavant tribe lived in the southern part of the Great Basin, in the area now known as western Utah. They too were experts in using the land for sustenance, gathering plants like juniper berries and piñon nuts, and hunting small game. Their homes were small, simple structures made from branches and plant fibers, providing shelter from the harsh desert winds and hot sun. The Pavant were deeply connected to the land, and their spiritual practices reflected this bond. As we move further south, we enter the Sonoran Desert, home to the Tohono O'odham and the Yaqui people. The Tohono O'odham, who live in present-day Arizona and Mexico, are known for their incredible resilience in one of the hottest and driest places on Earth. They have adapted to the harsh desert environment, creating homes that shielded them from the intense heat of the desert sun. The Yaqui people, whose lands stretch across the border into Mexico, have a rich cultural heritage tied to both the desert and the river, and their spiritual life is deeply connected to both the natural world and the deities they worship. The Tohono O'odham are particularly known for their agriculture, growing corn, beans and squash in the desert. Their farming techniques were sophisticated, using the precious water from the Gila River to irrigate their crops. Over time, they developed complex irrigation systems that allowed them to grow food in a region where water was scarce. Their lives were shaped by the cycles of the sun and the changing seasons, and their spiritual beliefs revolved around the earth, the sky, and the cycles of nature. In the southwest, we find the Zuni people, who have lived in the high deserts of New Mexico for thousands of years. The Zuni are known for their pottery, jewelry, and weaving, which they crafted from the natural materials that surrounded them. Their homes were built into the cliffs, providing protection from the elements. The Zuni have a deep connection to their ancestors, and their spiritual practices center around honoring the earth and the spirits that inhabit it. The Zuni are also famous for their ceremonial dances, which are an important part of their cultural and spiritual life. As we move eastward, we come to the eastern woodlands, home to the Iroquois, Algonquin, and Cherokee peoples. These tribes lived in the dense forest that stretched from the Great Lakes to the Atlantic coast, relying on the abundant resources of the land for their survival. They built longhouses made of wood, bark, and thatch, creating communal living spaces where extended families lived together in harmony. The longhouse was a symbol of their strong sense of community, where everyone worked together for the greater good. The Iroquois in particular are known for their confederacy, a political alliance formed by 5 tribes: the Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, Cayuga, and Seneca. These tribes formed a sophisticated system of government, with a grand council that made decisions for the entire confederacy. This system of governance, based on principles of democracy and balance, was one of the most advanced political systems in North America at the time. The Iroquois believed in the importance of peace, and their great law of peace became the foundation for their political and spiritual life. The Cherokee, in the southeast, were another powerful tribe in the eastern woodlands. Their culture revolved around a deep connection to the land and the natural world. They were farmers, growing crops like corn, beans, and squash, and they also hunted in the forests for deer and wild turkey. The Cherokee had a unique and complex social structure, with a council of leaders who made decisions for the tribe. They also had a written language, developed by Sequoyah, which allowed them to record their history and traditions for future generations. As we continue our journey through the landscapes of the eastern woodlands, we encounter the Powhatan people, who lived along the shores of the Chesapeake Bay in what is now Virginia. The Powhatan were skilled fishermen and hunters, relying on the abundance of the river and the forest for their sustenance. Their homes, like those of many other tribes in the region, were made of woven mats and bark, providing shelter from the cold winds in the winter and the warmth of the summer sun. The Powhatan people lived in tribal confederacies with a chief or werowance at the helm. These leaders were not only political figures, but also spiritual guides, holding deep wisdom about the ways of the natural world. Much like the Iroquois, the Powhatan had a sense of unity and shared purpose, understanding that the survival of the group relied on harmony with the land and each other. Their world, much like that of other indigenous tribes, was rooted in nature. They believed in a deep connection to the earth, and their spiritual practices were centered around maintaining balance with the world around them. They held ceremonies to honor the spirits of the forest, the rivers, and the animals they hunted. These ceremonies often involved song, dance, and offerings to the spirits in the hope of ensuring a good harvest and safe travels. As we move further west to the Great Lakes region, we come upon the Ojibwa, also known as the Chippewa. The Ojibwa were masters of the waters. They traveled by canoe, using the many rivers and lakes to move throughout their homeland. The Ojibwa lived in a region abundant with wildlife, deer, moose, and beavers. They relied heavily on fishing, particularly for lake fish such as walleye and trout. The Ojibwa built their homes called wigwams, constructed of birch bark, which was light yet strong enough to provide protection from the elements. The bark was peeled from the trees in the spring, ensuring the tree's health was not harmed. These homes were dome-shaped, perfect for the cold winters of the north, with tightly woven coverings to keep warmth inside. The Ojibwa were deeply connected to the natural world, and their ceremonies reflected this. They believed that the earth was a living entity, and every creature, every tree, every river had a spirit. They practiced visions quests, seeking guidance from the spirits through dreams and meditation, often in the stillness of the forests or on the banks of a peaceful lake. The dreams and visions were seen as a way to communicate with the Great Spirit, who provided wisdom and direction in times of need. Further south, in the southeast part of the continent, we find the Creek and Seminole tribes. These peoples lived in the fertile lands of what is now Georgia, Alabama, and Florida, where they practiced agriculture and hunting. They grew corn, beans, and squash as well as tobacco. Their lives were shaped by the seasons, planting and harvesting crops, hunting game, and gathering the bounty of the land. The Creek people lived in chickees, open-sided homes with thatched roofs made of palmetto palm leaves. These homes provided a cool refuge from the sweltering heat of the southern sun. The Creek had a strong sense of community, with family clans living together in villages near rivers and lakes. Their spiritual beliefs were closely tied to the seasons and the earth, and they held ceremonies to honor the forces that governed their lives. Their most important ceremony was the green corn ceremony, which marked the beginning of the harvest and was a time for thanksgiving, renewal, and the purification of the community. To the west, in what is now Texas, the Comanche people, known for their unmatched skill on horseback, lived as nomadic hunters. The Comanche were once part of the Shoshone tribe, but they had long since developed their own distinct culture. They traveled the plains on horseback, chasing the buffalo, which provided them with meat, clothing, and tools. The Comanche were fierce warriors, but they also understood the land like no other people. The Comanche had a complex social structure and their people were divided into different bands, each led by a chief. These bands would come together for major events, like the buffalo hunts, where the entire community would participate in the hunt, ensuring that no part of the buffalo went to waste. The Comanche were known for their strategic thinking in battle, and their ability to move swiftly and quietly across the plains made them almost unbeatable. Though they were skilled in war, the Comanche also had a rich spiritual life. Their ceremonies were deeply tied to the land, and they often held dances to honour the Great Spirit and the animals they depended on. The Comanche also believed in the power of the sun, which they considered to be a symbol of life, strength and rebirth. They saw themselves as the protectors of the plains, a role they took very seriously, defending their homeland against both rival tribes and European settlers. As we drift further into the heart of the Great Plains, the vast open expanse of land that stretches from the Rocky Mountains to the Mississippi River, we encounter the story of the Sioux, one of the most well-known and revered tribes in Native American history. The Sioux were a powerful and resilient people who for generations roamed the plains following the great herds of buffalo that provided them with everything they needed: food, clothing, tools and shelter. The Sioux lived in taipes, portable homes made of buffalo hides stretched over wooden poles. These homes could be assembled and disassembled quickly, allowing the Sioux to follow the buffalo across the plains with ease. The teepees were designed to be both warm in the winter and cool in the summer, offering protection from the harsh elements while maintaining a connection to the open sky and the land around them. The Sioux were known for their bravery and strength in battle. They were fierce warriors, with a deep sense of honour and pride. The warrior culture was an essential part of their identity, and their bravery was celebrated through ceremonies, storytelling and art. Each warrior earned their status through acts of courage, such as counting coup, touching an enemy without harming them, and their accomplishments were often depicted in intricate beadwork, paintings and carvings. But beyond their warrior spirit, the Sioux were also deeply spiritual people. They believed in the presence of the Great Spirit, who watched over them and guided their actions. They believed that everything in nature, the sun, the moon, the stars, the trees, the animals, was connected, and that all of life was sacred. The Sioux held many ceremonies to honour these spirits, including the famous sun dance, a ritual that celebrated the renewal of life and the cycle of nature. In the northeast, where the dense forest met the waterways, the Algonquin and Iroquois lived in communities that were as much about peace as they were about war. The Iroquois Confederacy, known as the Haudenosaunee, was a sophisticated political alliance of 6 tribes: the Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, Cayuga, Seneca, and the Tuscarora. Together, they formed a democratic system that was based on consensus and mutual respect. The Iroquois were known for their deep respect for the land and their ability to live in harmony with nature. Their homes, longhouses, were large, communal dwellings made of wood and bark. These structures were not just places to live, they were a reflection of the Iroquois' values of community, cooperation, and family. Inside the longhouse, families would live together, working as one to ensure the survival and well-being of the group. The Iroquois Confederacy is often regarded as one of the first democratic systems in the world. The Grand Council of the Confederacy consisted of 56 chiefs from the 6 tribes, and decisions were made through dialogue, debate, and consensus. This form of governance, where the voices of all members were heard and respected, is thought to have inspired the founders of the United States, especially the framers of the US Constitution. While the Iroquois were known for their diplomacy and their ability to maintain peace among their own tribes, they were also skilled warriors. The Iroquois warriors were trained from a young age, learning the art of hunting, tracking, and battle. They fought with honour and strategy, and their warriors were feared by their enemies. As we travel further south, we come to the Cherokee people, who lived in the forests and valleys of the southeast United States in areas now known as Georgia, Tennessee, and North Carolina. The Cherokee were an agricultural society, growing crops such as corn, beans, and squash, as well as tobacco. They were skilled farmers, using the land to sustain their growing population. The Cherokee were also known for their rich culture and advanced society. They created a written language, developed by the scholar Sequoyah, which allowed them to record their history, traditions, and knowledge. This language, called the Cherokee syllabary, was a remarkable achievement, and it allowed the Cherokee to preserve their culture in a way that many other tribes could not. The Cherokee lived in wattle and daub homes made from a combination of wooden frames, mud, and clay. These homes were built to provide warmth in the winter and protection from the summer heat. The Cherokee also practiced ceremonies and rituals that were deeply connected to the natural world. They believed that the earth, the sun, the moon, and the stars were all interconnected, and that everything had a spirit. One of the most important ceremonies for the Cherokee was the green corn ceremony, which marked the beginning of the harvest season. This ceremony, which included dancing, singing, and feasting, was a time of renewal and thanksgiving. It was a time to honour the earth and the spirits that provided for the tribe, and to ask for a bountiful harvest in the year to come. As we journey south, we find ourselves in the dry, sun-scorched lands of the southwest, where the Apache and Navajo tribes lived. These people, despite the harshness of their environment, created lives of resilience and adaptation. The Apache, a group of various culturally related tribes, lived across the desert, from New Mexico to Arizona and northern Mexico. Their life in the desert required ingenuity, and they were known for their fierce independence and incredible survival skills. The Apache were primarily hunter-gatherers, relying on the resources of the land to sustain them. They hunted game like deer and bison, and gathered plants for food and medicine. The Apache were also excellent warriors skilled in tracking, raiding, and surviving in the most difficult conditions. Their warrior spirit was integral to their culture, and they believed that bravery and strength were virtues that helped them to connect with the spiritual realm. Their homes, known as wickiups, were built from natural materials such as brush and saplings. These simple round structures provided shelter from the harsh desert heat, and they could be easily disassembled and moved as the Apache moved across the land. The Apache were nomadic, moving in small bands as they followed the game and gathered resources. The land was vast, and each family group knew the terrain and its rhythms intimately. The Navajo, who lived in the high deserts of Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah, also developed a deep connection to the land. The Navajo are perhaps best known for their weaving and silver jewelry, which have become iconic symbols of Native American culture. Their homes, called hogans, were carefully constructed from wood and clay, often facing east to welcome the morning sun. The Navajo had a rich spiritual life, and they believed that their ancestors had emerged from the earth, making the land sacred. The Navajo were primarily shepherds and farmers, raising sheep and cultivating crops like corn, beans, and squash. Their herding practices were integral to their way of life, and they were known for their ability to adapt to the desert environment, making use of every available resource. The Navajo also practiced ceremonies to maintain balance with the earth, the sky, and the holy people who guided them. These ceremonies were meant to ensure that they would live in harmony with the land and the spirits, and they included songs, dances, and rituals performed during the changing seasons. In the northwest, the Nez Perce and Flathead tribe lived amidst the towering mountains and lush forests. The Nez Perce, known for their beautiful horses and advanced farming practices, lived in the Pacific Northwest along the Columbia River. They were skilled traders, exchanging goods with tribes from across the land, including items like salmon, skins, and root vegetables. Their homes were made of woven mats, and they often lived in longhouses that could house multiple families. The Nez Perce were also known for their art, particularly their beadwork and embroidery, which depicted animals, nature, and the spiritual world. The Nez Perce people are perhaps best known for their role in the Nez Perce War of the 1870s, a conflict that arose when the US government sought to forcibly relocate them to a reservation. The Nez Perce, led by their chief Joseph, were known for their bravery and fierce resistance, and their journey through the wilderness is one of the most remarkable stories of survival and courage in Native American history. Their horseback riding skills were unparalleled, and they used their horses to outmaneuver their enemies and travel long distances. In the northeast, the Wampanoag and Pequot tribes lived along the shores of New England. The Wampanoag were known for their agricultural skills, cultivating corn, beans, and squash, and they were famous for their hospitality. When the Pilgrims arrived in the New World, the Wampanoag, led by Chief Massasoit, helped them survive their first harsh winter by teaching them how to grow food and hunt in the forests. This partnership, while marked by some struggles, is often seen as a moment of mutual respect and cooperation. The Pequot, who lived in what is now Connecticut, were known for their fierce resistance to European settlers. They had a rich spiritual life, centered around the worship of the Great Spirit, and they believed in the sacredness of the land and the natural world. The Pequot were skilled warriors, and their fortified villages were a testament to their defensive prowess. However, their society was ultimately destroyed by the Pequot War in the 1630s, a tragic conflict that resulted in the massacre of many members of the tribe. The eastern woodlands, with their vast forests, rich rivers, and diverse wildlife, were home to many other tribes as well. The Lenape, Mohican, and Susquehannock were just a few of the many tribes that lived in this region, each with their own unique culture, traditions, and way of life. The Lenape, for example, lived in the northeast, and their culture revolved around the deer, the fish, and the cedar tree. They lived in longhouses and practiced farming and hunting. Their society was based on a strong sense of community and cooperation, and their spiritual beliefs were deeply tied to the land. As we travel through the vast plains of the Midwest, we come across the Cheyenne, one of the most remarkable tribes in Native American history. The Cheyenne lived in the heart of the Great Plains, where the buffalo roamed freely across the grasslands. For the Cheyenne, the buffalo was not just a source of food, but a sacred animal, embodying strength, survival, and spirituality. Their lives were intertwined with the rhythm of the plains and the mighty herds that travelled across them. The Cheyenne were masterful horse riders and hunters, relying heavily on the buffalo for sustenance. They crafted their teepees from buffalo hides, which kept them warm in the winter and cool in the summer. Their lives were centered around the buffalo hunt, which was not just a means of survival, but a spiritual journey. The Cheyenne believed that the buffalo had a spirit and the hunt was an act of respect, honoring the animal's life and its role in sustaining their people. In the late spring and early summer, the Cheyenne would gather in large groups, preparing for the buffalo hunt. The hunt itself was a highly coordinated and dangerous affair. Hunters would ride on horseback using bows and arrows, while others would drive the buffalo towards a cliff or enclosure where they could be trapped. The Cheyenne understood the rhythms of the plains like no other people, and their ability to communicate silently and move swiftly on horseback made them an incredibly efficient and skilled hunting tribe. Despite their warrior culture, the Cheyenne were deeply spiritual people, with a profound connection to the land and the forces that governed it. They believed that everything in nature was interconnected, from the earth beneath their feet to the stars above. Sacred ceremonies were held to honor the Great Spirit and the spirits of the animals, and the Cheyenne had a rich tradition of storytelling passed down from generation to generation. These stories, full of wisdom and adventure, helped to guide their lives and preserve their culture. In the northern Great Plains, we find the Lakota Sioux, a tribe of legendary warriors who roamed the land in pursuit of the buffalo. The Lakota were part of the larger Sioux Nation, a powerful alliance of tribes that dominated the Great Plains. The Lakota were known for their bravery in battle, their spiritual beliefs, and their close-knit family structure. Like the Cheyenne, the Lakota lived in teepees and relied on the buffalo for food, clothing, and tools. The Lakota Sioux are perhaps best known for their role in the Battle of the Little Bighorn in 1876, where they, alongside the Cheyenne and Arapaho, fought and defeated the US Army. Led by the Great Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse, the Lakota Sioux successfully defended their way of life against the encroaching settlers. Despite their military success, however, the battle marked a turning point in the war between the US government and the Native American tribes, and the Lakota Sioux would soon face even more challenges as settlers continued to move westward. The Lakota had a rich spiritual life, with the Sundance being one of their most important ceremonies. The Sundance was a ritual of renewal, where dancers would sacrifice their physical pain as an offering to the Great Spirit in exchange for strength, guidance, and protection. The Lakota Sioux believed that the sun was the source of life, and their connection to it was central to their spiritual beliefs. The Sundance was not only a personal test of endurance, but also a community event, bringing together families and tribal members for a time of reflection, prayer, and renewal. Further south, in the southern plains, we find the Comanche, one of the most fearsome and skilled tribes in all of North America. The Comanche were originally part of the Shoshone tribe, but over time they developed their own unique culture and became known as the Lords of the Plains. The Comanche were master horsemen and warriors, feared by settlers and other tribes alike. Their horses were integral to their way of life, allowing them to move swiftly across the plains and giving them an advantage in battle. The Comanche were known for their hit-and-run tactics, using their speed and agility to outmaneuver their enemies. They were also skilled in raiding and trading, acquiring goods from both European settlers and neighbouring tribes. The Comanche were also deeply spiritual, with their lives guided by the natural world and the spirits that they believed inhabited it. They believed in a spiritual connection to the earth, the sky, and the animals they hunted. Their ceremonies, like those of the Lakota, were meant to honour the Great Spirit and ensure the prosperity of their people. The Comanche lived in teepees, just like many of the other plains tribes. These homes were made of buffalo hides and were designed to be easily moved as the Comanche followed the buffalo and moved across the plains. Their nomadic lifestyle required them to be flexible and adaptable, and they were always prepared to move when necessary. As we continue southward, we come upon the Mojave and Pima people, who inhabited the deserts of California and Arizona. The Mojave people lived along the Colorado River, where they learned to survive in the harsh desert environment by utilizing the natural resources around them. They were skilled farmers, growing corn, beans and squash, and they used the river's waters to irrigate their crops. The Mojave also hunted deer, bighorn sheep and small game, but their most important resource came from the river itself. In the heat of the desert, where life can be a challenge, the Mojave people developed remarkable methods of survival. They used reed baskets to catch fish and hunted with bows and arrows. They also created intricate pottery, often decorated with geometric patterns that had spiritual significance. The Mojave believed in the connection between the human world and the supernatural, and their rituals often centered around the spirit world, with ceremonies meant to bring protection and guidance. The Pima people, like the Mojave, lived in the deserts of the southwest, but their homeland was centered around the Gila River in present-day Arizona. The Pima were known for their advanced agriculture techniques, particularly their ability to grow cotton and weave it into beautiful fabrics. Their irrigation methods allowed them to thrive in a region where water was scarce, and their villages were often located near the river, where they could tend to their crops. The Pima people, much like their Mojave neighbours, had a deep spiritual connection to the land. They believed that everything around them was alive with energy, from the mountains to the rivers, and they conducted ceremonies to honour the earth and its creatures. They also had a rich oral tradition, passing down stories, songs and knowledge from generation to generation. Pima women were especially skilled in basket weaving, creating intricately designed baskets used for storage and cooking. As we make our way further south into Mexico, we encounter the Tarahumara people, known for their incredible ability to run long distances across the Sierra Madre Mountains. The Tarahumara live in the rugged, mountainous regions of northern Mexico, where they have adapted to the harsh environment through a combination of endurance and skill. The Tarahumara are famous for their ability to run for hours on end, often covering distances of up to 100 miles in a single stretch. Their running style is unique, and it has made them the subject of numerous studies and documentaries. The Tarahumara run primarily for ceremonial and spiritual reasons, and their running is deeply tied to their beliefs in the spirit world. Running is seen as a way to connect with the gods and seek guidance, strength and healing. The Tarahumara also use running as a means of travelling between remote villages in the mountains, where they live in simple homes made from stone and wood. The Tarahumara people are known for their simple, minimalist lifestyle, and they have managed to preserve their ancient traditions despite the pressures of the modern world. In the highlands of Mexico, the Maya lived in one of the most advanced civilizations in the Americas. The Maya built magnificent cities, including the famous Tikal, Chichen Itza, and Palenque, which were centers of culture, religion, and learning. The Maya were known for their stunning architecture, their sophisticated mathematics, and their precise understanding of the stars and planets. Their temples, pyramids, and palaces were built with incredible precision, using advanced stone-cutting techniques and mathematical calculations. The Maya were also skilled farmers, growing maize, beans, squash, and chili peppers. They developed advanced irrigation systems and crop rotation methods to ensure their survival in the dense jungles of Central America. Their agriculture was intricately tied to their religion, with the Maya believing that the gods provided the earth's bounty. Rituals were performed to honor these gods, and the Maya believed that the gods required sacrifices in exchange for prosperity. The Maya also had an intricate calendar system, which they used to track the movements of the stars and planets, as well as to predict eclipses and seasons. Their knowledge of astronomy was so advanced that some of their calculations are considered more accurate than those of modern astronomers. The Maya believed that the universe was governed by cycles, and their calendars reflected this belief. They also used the calendar to mark important ceremonial events, such as the beginning of the harvest, the arrival of the rainy season, and the solstices. Moving to the Andes Mountains of South America, we encounter the Inca, one of the most powerful and advanced civilizations in the Americas. The Inca Empire stretched along the western coast of South America, from modern-day Peru to Chile and Argentina. The Inca were master builders, creating elaborate cities, terraces, and irrigation systems that allowed them to thrive in the rugged, mountainous terrain. The Inca also constructed impressive road networks, connecting the far-flung corners of their empire and allowing for easy movement of people, goods, and military forces. The Inca were skilled farmers, using the mountain slopes to grow crops like potatoes, maize, and quinoa. They built terraces that prevented soil erosion and allowed them to grow crops in areas that would otherwise be unsuitable for farming. Their advanced techniques in agriculture helped sustain the vast Inca Empire, which was home to millions of people. As we move even farther south into the heart of Mesoamerica, we find ourselves in the midst of the Aztec Empire. The Aztecs, who lived in what is now Mexico, created one of the most advanced and awe-inspiring civilizations in the Americas. Their empire was vast, and its capital, Tenochtitlan, was a marvel of engineering, built on an island in the middle of Lake Texcoco. The city was a vibrant hub, with bustling markets, magnificent temples, and an intricate system of canals and causeways that connected the city to the surrounding land. The Aztecs were known for their military prowess, and they expanded their empire through a combination of warfare, alliances, and tribute. They believed that the gods required sacrifices to maintain balance in the universe, and human sacrifice was a central part of their religious practices. While this aspect of their culture is often viewed with horror by outsiders, it was deeply tied to their beliefs in the cyclical nature of life and death. The Aztecs believed that the sun needed nourishment in the form of blood to rise each day, and their sacrifices were seen as a way to ensure the sun's continued journey across the sky. Despite their reputation for sacrifice, the Aztecs were also skilled farmers, and they developed an advanced system of chinampas, or floating gardens, which allowed them to grow crops in the swampy conditions of Lake Texcoco. The chinampas were incredibly fertile, and they allowed the Aztecs to grow a variety of crops, including corn, beans, squash, and chili peppers. The Aztecs also developed a complex system of irrigation, which allowed them to feed the large population of Tenochtitlan and the surrounding cities. The Aztecs were also known for their art, creating stunning works of sculpture, pottery, and textiles. Their featherwork was particularly exquisite, with feathers from exotic birds used to create intricate patterns and designs. The Aztec calendar, which was based on both solar and lunar cycles, is another testament to their sophisticated understanding of the world around them. This calendar, known as the Tonalpohualli, was used to track religious ceremonies and agricultural activities. Moving away from the Central Highlands, we travel to the coastal regions of Central America, where the Maya once thrived. The Maya civilization is known for its remarkable achievements in mathematics, astronomy, and architecture. They developed an intricate system of writing and numerals, and their calendar system was one of the most accurate in the ancient world. The Maya were deeply connected to the natural world, and their cities were often built in alignment with the stars and the planets. They believed that the movements of the sun, the moon, and the stars had profound effects on their lives, and they used their astronomical knowledge to predict eclipses, planetary alignments, and other celestial events. The Maya built magnificent cities, such as Tikal, Palenque, and Copan, which were centers of culture, religion, and trade. Their temples, pyramids, and palaces were adorned with intricate carvings and inscriptions, telling the stories of their gods, rulers, and important events. These cities were often connected by a network of roads and trade routes, allowing the Maya to exchange goods and ideas with neighboring civilizations. One of the most striking features of Maya society was their complex social structure. The Maya had a hierarchical society with kings and priests at the top, followed by nobles, merchants, artisans, and farmers. Kings, or Ajor, were seen as intermediaries between the gods and the people, and they were often buried with elaborate rituals to ensure their safe passage into the afterlife. The Maya also had a system of divination, where priests would interpret the movements of the stars and other celestial phenomena to guide their decisions. Moving south, we reach the Andes Mountains, where the Inca Empire once stood. The Inca were the largest and most powerful civilization in the Americas before the arrival of the Europeans. Their empire stretched from what is now Peru all the way to Chile and Argentina, covering a vast and diverse range of landscapes, from high-altitude plateaus to coastal deserts. The Inca were known for their incredible engineering feats, including the construction of terraces, roads, and irrigation systems that allowed them to thrive in the harsh mountain environment. The Inca were also skilled farmers, using the mountain slopes to grow crops like potatoes, maize, and quinoa. They developed sophisticated methods of terracing and irrigation that allowed them to make the most of the limited arable land available. Their agricultural knowledge was so advanced that they were able to grow crops at high altitudes, where other civilizations would have struggled to survive. The Inca also developed a system of storage for their crops, using storage buildings called kolkas, which were built to keep their food safe and dry during the long winters. The Inca built fortresses and cities that were designed to withstand the harsh conditions of the Andes, and their architecture was renowned for its precision. The Inca did not use mortar in their stone construction, but instead used precisely cut stones that fit together perfectly, creating structures that have lasted for centuries. One of the most famous examples of Inca architecture is Machu Picchu, the ancient city built high in the mountains, which remains one of the most iconic sites in the world. The Inca were also known for their advanced medicine, which included successful brain surgery and the use of coca leaves for medicinal purposes. They believed in a deep connection between the physical and spiritual worlds, and their medical practices were guided by this belief. The Inca also had a highly organized system of government, with an emperor known as the Sapa Inca at the top of the hierarchy. The Sapa Inca was considered a god on earth, and his word was law. As we turn our focus northward, we encounter the Great Plains once again, this time the territory of the Crows and Blackfeet people, who lived in what is now Montana and parts of Canada. These tribes, much like the Sioux, were expert horsemen, hunters and warriors adapting seamlessly to the vast expanses of the Great Plains. The Blackfeet were known for their remarkable hunting skills, especially when it came to the buffalo, which provided them with food, clothing and shelter. Their lifestyle was entirely centered around the hunt, and their nomadic existence followed the movement of the great herds. The Blackfeet were also highly skilled in crafting weapons such as bows, arrows and spears, and their tactical ability in battle was greatly respected. The Crows, who lived to the south and east of the Blackfeet, also thrived in the Great Plains, with their rich culture rooted in their interactions with the land and the animals that inhabited it. They were known for their bravery and for their strategic thinking in battle. The Crows had a rich spiritual life that revolved around the animals they hunted, and they believed in maintaining balance with nature. Much like the Sioux and Blackfeet, they held ceremonies to honour the buffalo and other animals that were integral to their survival. Moving further northwest, we arrive at the Nootka and Haida peoples, who lived on the coastal regions of British Columbia and the Pacific Northwest. Unlike their counterparts in the plains, the Nootka and Haida were expert fishermen and whalers, relying on the bountiful seas for sustenance. They lived in villages near the coast, and their lives were intricately tied to the rhythms of the ocean. The Haida were particularly known for their impressive wooden totem poles, which served both as art and as a symbol of their spiritual beliefs. The totem poles often depicted animals, ancestors and gods, and they were used in important ceremonial gatherings. The Haida also built longhouses made of cedar wood, which were large enough to house multiple families and served as centres of community life. The Nootka, on the other hand, are known for their advanced boat-building skills. They crafted canoes that were capable of navigating the challenging waters of the Pacific Ocean. Their canoes were made from the bark of cedar trees, and they were expertly designed for both fishing and travel. The Nootka also had a rich tradition of storytelling, passing down their history and cultural knowledge through tales of spirits, animals, and the natural world. As we travel southwest, we arrive in the vast deserts of California, where we find the Kumeyaay, Cahuilla, and Serrano peoples. These tribes lived in a landscape that is both harsh and beautiful, filled with dry canyons, mountains, and sparse vegetation. The Kumeyaay and Cahuilla were known for their deep knowledge of the desert environment, and their ability to survive in such a tough place speaks to their resourcefulness and adaptability. The Cahuilla were skilled at hunting small game and gathering wild plants, and they also had a rich spiritual life. They believed that the earth was alive, and that everything in nature, from the smallest pebble to the largest mountain, had a spirit. The Cahuilla held ceremonies to honour the spirits and to seek guidance and protection for their people. The Serrano people, who lived in the mountains of Southern California, were also skilled hunters and gatherers. They lived in small, semi-permanent villages and relied on the land for their survival. The Serrano were known for their complex social structure, which was based on extended families that worked together to gather food and provide for each other. They also practiced ceremonies that were deeply tied to the mountains and the spirits of the land. As we head back east, we come to the Great Basin again, home to the Shoshone and Paiute peoples. The Shoshone lived across a wide area from Utah to Idaho, while the Paiute lived in southern Nevada and parts of California. Both of these tribes were nomadic, relying on the sagebrush and other plants for food, as well as hunting small game. Their homes were typically brush shelters, which were easily assembled and disassembled, allowing them to move freely with the seasons. The Shoshone and Paiute were also known for their basket weaving skills, creating intricate baskets that were used for everything from gathering food to holding water. These baskets were woven from the fibres of local plants, such as willow and yucca, and they were both practical and beautiful. The Shoshone and Paiute also had a rich oral tradition, passing down their stories and wisdom from one generation to the next. As we journey to the northern regions, we find the Hopi and Zuni people, whose culture flourished in the desert of Arizona. These two pueblos, while distinct still in their traditions, share a deep connection to the land and the spirits of the desert. The Hopi people, with their deep spirituality, are best known for their elaborate kachina ceremonies, which honour the spirits of the natural world and bring blessings to the community. The Hopi live in multi-storey homes made of stone and mud, built into the mesas, which provide them with both shelter and protection from the harsh desert elements. The Hopi believed that the kachina spirits lived in the clouds and mountains, and each year they would dance and sing to invoke the blessings of these spirits. The kachina dancers, often wearing elaborate masks and costumes, would move gracefully to the rhythm of drums as they symbolized the rain, the sun, and the forces of nature that were vital to their agricultural way of life. The Hopi relied on rain for their corn, beans, and squash, and their ceremonies were designed to ensure a bountiful harvest. The Zuni people, who lived to the south of the Hopi, also had a strong connection to the spiritual world. Like the Hopi, the Zuni practiced elaborate ceremonial dances and rituals, which were deeply tied to the land and the elements. The Zuni are famous for their intricate pottery, jewellery, and craftsmanship, all of which are imbued with spiritual significance. The Zuni created stunning ceremonial items, including beautifully designed beads, turquoise jewellery, and woven baskets, all of which served as offerings to the spirits. The Zuni also believed in the power of the sun and rain, and their ceremonies often centred around the belief that the natural world was governed by powerful deities. Like the Hopi, the Zuni relied heavily on their agricultural skills to survive in the harsh desert. Their farming practices, like those of the Hopi, were designed to conserve water and make the most of the limited rainfall. In the mountainous regions of New Mexico, the Navajo people thrived. The Navajo are known for their remarkable craftsmanship, including their famous silver jewellery, weavings, and rugs. The Navajo are also known for their spirituality, which is deeply connected to the land and the natural world. The Navajo believe that they are the children of the holy people, and their ceremonies often focus on honouring the spirits of the earth, sky, and animals. They have a deep respect for the land, which they view as sacred, and they conduct various rituals to maintain balance and harmony with the natural world. The Navajo lived in hogans, unique dome-shaped homes made of wood and earth, which were carefully designed to keep the cold out in the winter and the heat at bay in the summer. Their homes were a symbol of their connection to the earth, as the doorway of the hogans always faced east, towards the rising sun. The Navajo had a strong tradition of storytelling, passing down their wisdom, history, and beliefs through oral traditions. Their songs, stories, and prayers are an integral part of their spiritual life, and they are passed down from generation to generation to ensure that the community remains connected to their ancestral roots. In the Great Basin, the Shoshone people lived, primarily in what is now Utah and Idaho, adapting to the mountainous terrain and desert landscape. The Shoshone were nomadic, following the rhythms of nature and the migrations of the wild game they hunted. Their lifestyle revolved around hunting, gathering, and fishing, and they were highly skilled at using the resources of the land. The Shoshone were known for their woven baskets, clothing, and tools, all of which were made from natural materials found in their environment. The Shoshone had a rich spiritual tradition that was deeply connected to the land and the animals they hunted. Their ceremonies often focused on honouring the spirits of the animals, as they believed that the animals gave their lives to sustain the people, and it was through the hunting of these creatures that they maintained balance with the natural world. The Shoshone also practiced vision quests, seeking guidance from the spirits through dreams and meditation in the wilderness. As we move northward again, we come to the Columbia Plateau, home to the Nez Perce and Walla Walla people who lived in the Pacific Northwest. The Nez Perce were skilled horsemen and hunters, relying on the abundant resources of the region to sustain their people. They were known for their ability to raise horses, which they used for hunting, transportation, and trade. The Nez Perce were also known for their wicker baskets, beadwork, and fish traps, which they used to catch the salmon that thrived in the region's rivers. The Nez Perce people had a rich spiritual life with beliefs rooted in the idea that the earth, the animals, and the sky were all interconnected. They believed that the Great Spirit created the world and all of its creatures, and their ceremonies often honoured this connection. Vision quests were a part of their spiritual practices, as they sought wisdom and guidance from the spirit world. The Nez Perce also practiced a form of animism, believing that all living things had a spirit, and that they should be treated with respect. As we move further east, we find ourselves in the woodlands of North America, home to some of the most influential and sophisticated tribes in the continent's history. The Algonquin and Iroquois tribes lived in the dense forests and along the rivers that meandered through the northeastern part of what is now Canada and the United States. The Iroquois Confederacy, known as the Haudenosaunee or the Five Nations, was a unique and highly organised political system that existed long before the arrival of Europeans. The Iroquois created a form of democracy in which decisions were made through consensus, with representatives from each of the 5 tribes, the Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, Cayuga, and Seneca, coming together in a council to deliberate on important matters. This system of government was revolutionary for its time and has been recognised as an influence on the development of democratic principles in later Western societies. The Iroquois lived in large communal longhouses, built from cedar and other natural materials. These homes were spacious, with multiple families living together under one roof. The longhouse was symbolic of their culture of cooperation and family, where elders, men and women all played crucial roles in the community. The Iroquois also had a profound spiritual connection to the land and the natural world, and their rituals and ceremonies were deeply tied to the changing seasons, the earth, and the animals they relied on for survival. In the Woodlands region, the Algonquin were another important group of tribes. The Algonquin were known for their skilled hunting and fishing, as well as their craftsmanship in making birch bark canoes and tools. These canoes allowed the Algonquin to navigate the rivers and lakes of the northeastern part of North America, where they lived in villages along the shores. Their lifestyle was deeply intertwined with the water, and they used it not only for transportation but for hunting and gathering resources. The Algonquin people had a strong spiritual connection to the forest and wildlife, and their culture reflected this deep bond. Like the Iroquois, the Algonquin held ceremonies to honour the spirits of the land and animals, believing that the world was interconnected and that everything in nature had a role to play. Their myths, stories and rituals helped guide their lives, teaching them the importance of balance and respect for the earth. Further to the west, in the plains, the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes lived in the heart of the Great Plains. The Cheyenne were a proud warrior tribe, known for their fierce independence and their role in the Plains Indian Wars. They lived in teepees, portable homes that allowed them to follow the buffalo herds as they migrated across the vast plains. The Cheyenne were expert horsemen, and their cavalry was unmatched in battle. They relied on the buffalo not only for food, but also for clothing, shelter and tools, making them a key part of their daily lives. The Cheyenne were also deeply spiritual, with ceremonies and rituals that honoured the Great Spirit and the natural world. Their Sundance ceremony, one of the most important spiritual practices, was a time of renewal and prayer where they offered their physical pain as a sacrifice to the gods in exchange for strength, guidance and protection. The Cheyenne believed in the sacredness of the earth, and their rituals were meant to maintain balance between the physical and spiritual realms. The Arapaho were closely related to the Cheyenne, and their culture reflected many of the same values and traditions. Like the Cheyenne, the Arapaho relied on the buffalo for sustenance and survival, and they were also skilled hunters and warriors. The Arapaho were known for their bravery in battle, and they too followed a similar way of life that involved living in teepees and moving with the buffalo herds. As we travel southward again, we come to the Navajo, who lived in the desert regions of Arizona, New Mexico and Utah. The Navajo were known for their remarkable craftsmanship, particularly their silver jewelry and woven blankets, which became highly prized and sought after by both Native Americans and Europeans. The Navajo people also had a deep spiritual connection to the land, believing that they were descendants of the holy people who emerged from the earth to inhabit the land. The Navajo lived in hogans, traditional homes made of wood and clay, with the doorway always facing east to welcome the sun. Their spiritual practices were centered around the belief that the earth and the spirit world were interconnected. They performed ceremonies to heal the sick, honor the spirits, and maintain balance in their world. The Navajo also had a strong tradition of storytelling, passing down their myths and legends to younger generations to preserve their culture. As we head further into the heart of the Great Plains, we encounter the Sioux people, one of the most iconic tribes in North American history. The Sioux, who lived in what is now the Dakotas, Nebraska and Minnesota, were known for their warrior culture and their fierce resistance to European settlers. The Sioux were deeply connected to the buffalo and relied on it for nearly every aspect of their daily lives: food, clothing and shelter. The Sioux were expert hunters and horsemen, and their buffalo hunts were not only a means of survival but also a spiritual practice. The Sioux lived in teepees, portable dwellings made from buffalo hides, which allowed them to move easily with the herds. They were known for their elaborate ceremonies, which were often tied to the changing seasons, and they practiced vision quests and sun dances to seek guidance from the spirits. The Sioux believed that their connection to the land and the buffalo was sacred, and they honoured the Great Spirit in all their rituals. The Lakota Sioux, one of the 3 divisions of the Sioux Nation, are particularly famous for their spirituality and their role in the Battle of Little Bighorn in 1806. Led by Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse, the Lakota Sioux fought bravely against General Custer and his forces, achieving a great victory. This battle, however, marked the beginning of a difficult and tragic period for the Sioux, as the US government would continue its efforts to force them onto reservations. To the south, in what is now Texas and New Mexico, we find the Comanche, one of the most feared and skilled tribes in the Great Plains. The Comanche were originally part of the Shoshone tribe, but developed their own distinct culture and language after migrating southward. Known as the Lords of the Plains, the Comanche were master horsemen, and their knowledge of the land and warfare made them nearly unstoppable. The Comanche were expert raiders, and their speed and agility on horseback gave them a significant advantage in battle. The Comanche were also known for their nomadic lifestyle, following the buffalo herds across the plains. Like other plains tribes, the Comanche relied heavily on the buffalo for survival, using it for food, clothing and tools. They were also skilled craftsmen, creating beautiful beaded clothing, baskets and weapons. Their spiritual beliefs were closely tied to the land and the buffalo, and they performed elaborate rituals to honour the spirits and maintain balance in the natural world. The Apache lived in the southwest, spanning parts of Arizona, New Mexico, Texas and Mexico. The Apache were fierce warriors and master survivalists who lived in the harsh desert environment. Unlike the Comanche and Sioux, the Apache did not rely on the buffalo as heavily, as the desert was not home to large herds of buffalo. Instead, the Apache relied on hunting small game, gathering plants and raiding other tribes and settlements for resources. The Apache lived in wickiups, dome-shaped shelters made from brush and branches. These homes were designed to be easily assembled and disassembled, allowing the Apache to move swiftly and follow the game. The Apache were known for their hit-and-run tactics in battle, using their knowledge of the land and their speed to overwhelm their enemies. They were also highly skilled at using bows and arrows, and their ability to disappear into the landscape made them one of the most elusive tribes in the Southwest. While the Apache were known for their fearsome reputation in battle, they were also deeply connected to the land and the spirits. Their spiritual beliefs revolved around the idea that everything in nature had a spirit, and they honoured the mountains, rivers, and animals that sustained them. The Apache believed in a great spirit that guided their lives, and their ceremonies were designed to ensure harmony between the human world and the spiritual realm. In the Pacific Northwest, the Nez Perce and Flathead tribes thrived. The Nez Perce were known for their agriculture, growing crops like corn, beans, and squash in the fertile Columbia River basin. They were also expert horsemen and fishermen, relying on the abundant salmon in the Columbia River for food. The Nez Perce were skilled traders, exchanging goods like salmon, skins, and furs with other tribes and settlers. The Nez Perce lived in longhouses made from cedar wood and bark, which were perfectly suited for the climate of the Pacific Northwest. Their homes were designed to keep them warm in the winter and cool in the summer. The Nez Perce had a deep connection to the land, and their spiritual beliefs centered around the idea that they were caretakers of the natural world. They believed that the earth and the sky were intertwined, and their ceremonies were meant to honor this connection. The Flathead people lived in the Rocky Mountains and the Flathead Lake region of Montana. Like the Nez Perce, they were skilled fishermen and hunters, relying on the abundance of salmon and game in the area. The Flathead were known for their elaborate rituals and ceremonies, which honored the spirits of the land and the animals. They were also skilled craftsmen, creating intricate beaded jewelry, pottery, and woven baskets. As we continue our journey through the diverse landscapes of North America, we find ourselves traveling into the arid deserts of the Southwest, where the Hopi, Zuni, and Navajo peoples have long thrived. The desert, often seen as a harsh and unforgiving environment, was home to civilizations that demonstrated remarkable ingenuity and resilience. The Hopi, with their distinctive culture, have lived in the high desert for over 1,000 years. Their homes, multi-story stone dwellings, are built into the cliffs of the Mesa Verde, providing both protection and a commanding view of the surrounding land. The Hopi are known for their agriculture, cultivating corn, beans, squash, and cotton in an otherwise dry region. Their farming techniques are highly sophisticated, utilizing irrigation channels to channel water from the few rivers that snake through their arid land. Ceremonies play a significant role in Hopi life, and their spiritual practices are deeply tied to the seasons and the elements. They believe that their world is governed by spirits that must be appeased to ensure prosperity and balance. The Kachina dances are a central part of their spiritual life, where dancers wear elaborate masks and costumes, representing the spirits of rain, sun, and earth. These rituals are not just religious, they are a vital part of maintaining the agricultural cycles that sustain the Hopi community. To the south, the Zuni people live in a similarly harsh landscape, but their spiritual and cultural practices differ in significant ways. The Zuni live in the Mimbaras region, and their villages are built in stone and adobe, designed to withstand the dry, hot desert climate. The Zuni are known for their intricate pottery and jewel craft, creating some of the most beautiful ceremonial items in the southwest. They also practice agriculture, growing corn, beans, and squash. Like the Hopi, they rely on the rain for survival and have many ceremonies that are meant to bring rain and ensure good harvests. The Zuni are famous for their storytelling traditions, passing down legends and spiritual teachings that have been told for generations. They believe in the sacredness of the earth and the spirits that inhabit it, and their ceremonies often focus on healing and connecting with the spiritual world. Priests and spiritual leaders play an important role in guiding the community, and their knowledge of the natural world is deeply intertwined with their religious practices. Further east, the Navajo people live in the deserts of Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah. The Navajo, also known as the Diné, are one of the largest Native American tribes in the United States, and their culture is rich in spirituality and craftsmanship. The Navajo are skilled weavers, and their rug weaving is some of the most famous in the world. The Navajo rugs are known for their intricate patterns, which often represent natural elements like the sun, earth, and mountains. The Navajo are also known for their silversmithing, creating beautiful silver jewelry adorned with turquoise, which has spiritual significance in Navajo culture. They live in hogans, traditional homes that are built using wood and earth, with the doorway always facing the east, allowing the morning sun to enter. The Navajo are deeply connected to the land and believe that they were created by the holy people, who taught them how to live in harmony with the earth. Like the Hopi and the Zuni, the Navajo have a rich spiritual life, and their ceremonies are centered around healing and maintaining balance. The Navajo believe that everything in the world is connected, and they honor the spirits of the land, the animals, and the ancestors through rituals and prayers. One of the most important aspects of Navajo spirituality is the practice of healing ceremonies, which are performed by medicine men to restore balance and harmony to the person and the world around them. As we move westward again, we come to the coastal regions of the Pacific Northwest, where the Tlingit, Haida, and Kwakwaka'wakw peoples have lived for thousands of years. These tribes are known for their art, fishing, and complex social structures. The Tlingit people, for example, built large cedar wood houses and were known for their totem poles, which represented their family heritage and spiritual beliefs. The Tlingit and other coastal tribes relied heavily on the ocean for their sustenance, particularly salmon. They had elaborate systems of fishing, using nets, weirs, and traps to catch the abundance of fish that came up the rivers. The Haida, another group in the region, were known for their remarkable carvings and artwork. Their totem poles, masks, and canoes were crafted from cedar wood and often depicted animals, ancestors, and spiritual beings. The Kwakwaka'wakw are also known for their artistic expressions, including potlatches, ceremonial feasts where leaders and families gave away gifts to assert their wealth and status. These potlatches were an important part of their social system, ensuring that wealth and power were distributed within the community. The Kwakwaka'wakw also believed in the importance of maintaining harmony with the natural world, and their ceremonies often reflected this connection to the spirits and the land. As we turn our focus towards the vast Great Plains, we arrive at the Cheyenne, Arapaho, and Kiowa tribes, whose lives were deeply intertwined with the rhythms of nature and the mighty buffalo. The Cheyenne and Arapaho, both powerful in their own right, had a culture of warriors and hunters who moved across the plains, hunting buffalo for survival and following the herds as they migrated across the open grasslands. The Cheyenne, in particular, are known for their courage and warrior spirit. They lived in teepees, portable homes made from buffalo hides, which allowed them to move swiftly across the plains following the great herds. Their society was built around the buffalo hunt, and they were highly skilled in both hunting and warfare. Their warriors were respected for their ability to ride swiftly and strike fear into their enemies. The Cheyenne also had a complex spiritual life, with ceremonies and dances dedicated to the spirits of the animals they hunted, the earth and the sun. These rituals, such as the sun dance, were seen as essential for ensuring good hunting and prosperity for the tribe. Like the Cheyenne, The Arapaho people were highly skilled in warfare and hunting. They also lived in teepees, which were designed for mobility and ease of setup. The Arapaho were known for their strategic tactics in battle, and they fought alongside the Cheyenne in several significant conflicts during the westward expansion. While they were fierce warriors, the Arapaho also had a rich spiritual life, and their ceremonial dances were used to connect with the spirits and ensure harmony with nature. These dances, often held around a sacred fire, were an integral part of their culture and served as a way to pass down traditions and stories to future generations. To the south, we find the Kiowa, who were equally skilled hunters and warriors. The Kiowa were one of the most powerful tribes in the southern plains, and they were known for their deep connection to the buffalo. Much like the Cheyenne and Arapaho, the Kiowa followed the herds across the plains, relying on the buffalo for food, clothing, and shelter. The Kiowa also had a rich oral tradition, with stories and myths passed down through generations. These stories often revolved around the buffalo, the spirits of the land, and the heroes who protected the tribe. The Kiowa were also known for their art, particularly their hide paintings, which depicted scenes of warfare, buffalo hunts, and ceremonial events. Their paintings were often created on buffalo hides, and they were used to record important events in the tribe's history. The Kiowa were also skilled horsemen, and their warriors were highly respected for their bravery and their ability to maneuver swiftly on horseback. The Kiowa followed a similar nomadic lifestyle to the Cheyenne and Arapaho, moving with the seasons and the buffalo herds. As we travel westward to the mountains and deserts of the southwest, we encounter the Apache, a people who are known for their resilience and fierceness. The Apache lived in the rugged terrain of Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas, where they fought fiercely to defend their lands from the encroaching European settlers and US military. Unlike the Cheyenne, Arapaho, and Kiowa, the Apache did not rely heavily on the buffalo, but instead hunted small game, gathered plants, and raided nearby tribes for resources. The Apache were expert survivalists and warriors, and they became famous for their hit-and-run tactics in battle. Their deep knowledge of the land allowed them to evade their enemies, and their stealth and quickness made them difficult to catch. The Apache were also skilled in the art of craftsmanship, creating tools, weapons, and clothing from the resources available to them in the harsh desert environment. Their weavings and silver jewelry became highly prized, and their beaded designs and intricate patterns were used in their clothing and ceremonial items. The Apache also had a strong spiritual connection to the land and nature, and their ceremonies were deeply tied to their beliefs in the natural world. Their vision quests were important rituals that helped guide individuals through difficult times, and their sun dance was used to honor the Great Spirit and seek guidance. The Apache believed that their ancestors and the spirits of the land played an integral role in their lives, and they maintained a deep respect for the earth and all its creatures. Farther west, the Pueblo people thrived in the desert regions of the southwest, particularly in present-day New Mexico and Arizona. The Pueblo tribes, including the Hopi, Zuni, and Taos, were known for their impressive cliff dwellings and multi-story houses made from adobe and stone. Unlike the nomadic tribes of the plains, the Pueblo people were more settled, cultivating crops such as corn, beans, and squash in the fertile valleys of the southwest. The Pueblo people were also known for their advanced irrigation systems, which allowed them to make the most of the limited rainfall in their region. The Pueblo people lived in tight-knit communities and had a strong sense of social organization. Their ceremonies were central to their spiritual lives, with dances and rituals designed to honor the spirits of nature and bring rain for their crops. The Pueblo believed in the sacredness of the land, and their art reflected this connection, with pottery, weavings, and jewelry that were both functional and beautiful. Surviving in the harsh environment of North America was no small challenge for the indigenous tribes, but they overcame it with creativity, resilience, and a profound understanding of nature. Each tribe developed unique strategies and skills to cope with their difficult living conditions. Survival on the Great Plains. In the Great Plains, survival was inseparable from the buffalo. For tribes like the Sioux, Cheyenne, and Arapaho, the buffalo was not only the primary food source but also provided materials for clothing, weapons, and shelter. Teepees, mobile homes made from buffalo hides, were not only easy to move but also provided warmth in the winter and coolness in the summer. These tribes were expert hunters, and they hunted buffalo by organizing large hunts, coordinating closely within their communities. They knew how to use every part of the buffalo, from bones for tools to fur for clothing, and fat for food and lamp oil. The Plains tribes were also incredibly resourceful in crafting hunting weapons. Arrows, spears, and stone axes were common tools used in their hunts. Their hunting grounds were carefully chosen, targeting areas where the buffalo would frequently roam. The tribes also understood the importance of tracking and stalking their prey, using the natural features of the landscape to their advantage. Survival in the desert. In the southwest, life was even more difficult. The Apache, Navajo, and Hopi peoples lived in the arid deserts of Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah, where water was scarce and the environment was harsh. The Navajo, for example, lived in hogans, traditional homes made from wood and clay, which kept them sheltered from both the desert heat and cold nights. Hogan homes were carefully designed, with the entrance always facing east, symbolizing their connection to the sun and the spiritual world. The Apache were master survivalists, known for their ability to live off the land by hunting small game, gathering wild plants, and using every available resource. They did not have the same abundance of large game like the buffalo in the plains, so they relied on hunting smaller animals such as deer, rabbit, and wild turkey. They also excelled at raiding other tribes for resources, using their knowledge of the desert landscape to remain elusive. The Hopi, like the Navajo, were primarily agriculturalists. They grew corn, beans, and squash, crops that could withstand the dry conditions. The Hopi were also known for their elaborate irrigation systems, which allowed them to make the most of the limited water available in their desert home. These systems, along with the rain dances and ceremonies they performed to ensure good harvests, were key to their survival. Survival in the Pacific Northwest. As we move westward to the Pacific Northwest, the climate is much milder, but survival still requires a unique set of skills. The Haida, Tlingit, and Kwakiutl people lived in the lush coastal forests, relying on the rich marine resources that the region provided. Their survival was tied to the sea, and they became expert fishermen, relying on the abundant salmon that swam upstream each year. The Tlingit and Haida built large cedar wood houses and created canoes designed for navigating the waters, crafted from the same trees that formed their homes. These tribes were also known for their art and craftsmanship. They made totem poles, masks, and tools from the abundant cedar wood, and their pottery, woven baskets, and beaded clothing were highly prized. The Kwakiutl, in particular, are known for their potlatch ceremonies, which were held to mark important events and exchange gifts. These ceremonies were not only a means of maintaining social bonds, but also a way to ensure that all the members of the tribe were taken care of and connected to the spirits. Their ceremonial life revolved around honouring the spirits of the land and sea. The Tlingit and Haida believed that the animals and landforms, such as mountains, rivers, and forests, had their own spirits, and that maintaining harmony with these spirits was essential for survival. Their connection to nature was not just practical, it was deeply spiritual. As we move into the Great Basin region, home to the Ute, Paiute, and Shoshone tribes, we see yet another example of resilience and adaptability. The Great Basin is a vast, arid region, where water is scarce and temperatures can soar in the summer and plunge in the winter. For the Ute, Paiute, and Shoshone, survival meant adapting to this harsh environment by becoming expert hunter-gatherers and survivalists. The Ute people, who have lived in the Great Basin for thousands of years, developed deep knowledge of the land's natural resources. They were skilled hunters, fishermen, and gatherers, relying on the land for food, water, and materials for shelter and tools. The Ute were expert at tracking and stalking, using their knowledge of the environment to find food in places where others might have seen only barren deserts. They hunted deer, elk, bighorn sheep, and smaller animals, and gathered plants, roots, and seeds to supplement their diet. The Paiute, who lived in the southwestern part of the Great Basin, had a similar relationship with the land, but their environment was even more arid. The Paiute people relied heavily on pinon pine nuts, grass seeds, and roots that grew in the dry regions. They also hunted small game, including rabbits and squirrels, and fished in the rivers and lakes that dotted the region. The Paiute were skilled at using the limited water resources available to them, finding hidden springs and digging wells to access underground water supplies. In the deserts and mountains of the Great Basin, the Shoshone thrived by adapting their way of life to the land. The Shoshone were also nomadic, moving from one area to another in search of food and water. They were excellent hunters and gatherers, and their knowledge of the terrain allowed them to survive in areas where others would have struggled. The Shoshone were known for their warrior culture, and their horseback riding and archery skills made them formidable opponents in battle. Their homes, known as wickiups, were constructed using brush, willow, and grass. These portable homes could be easily assembled and disassembled, allowing the Shoshone to move quickly and efficiently with the changing seasons. In the summer, they would travel to higher elevations to escape the heat, and in the winter, they would return to lower elevations where the snow was less severe. The Shoshone lived in close-knit communities, with extended families banding together for protection and support. The Shoshone, like other tribes in the Great Basin, had a rich spiritual life. They believed in a spiritual connection to the land, the animals, and the spirits that inhabited the world around them. Their ceremonies and rituals were designed to honor these spirits, ensuring that their communities could survive and thrive in the harsh environment. The Shoshone also believed in the power of dreams and visions, and their vision quests were used to gain guidance and wisdom from the spirit world. Further south, in the Sonoran Desert, the Hohokam and Pima tribes lived in one of the harshest environments in North America. The Hohokam, who lived in what is now Arizona, were known for their incredible irrigation systems. They built extensive networks of canals to bring water from the Salt and Gila rivers to their fields, allowing them to grow crops like corn, beans, and squash in the dry desert. These irrigation systems were among the most sophisticated in the ancient world, and they allowed the Hohokam to thrive in an environment where others could not. The Pima, who lived to the south of the Hohokam, also relied on irrigation to grow their crops. They were skilled at farming and fishing, and their knowledge of the land allowed them to harvest food from both the desert and the rivers. Like the Hohokam, the Pima had a deep connection to the land and the water, and their spiritual beliefs were centered around honoring the natural forces that sustained them. The Pima also had a rich tradition of storytelling, passing down their history, beliefs, and wisdom through generations. As we travel east, we enter the Mississippi Valley, where the Mississippian culture flourished. The Mississippians are best known for their mound building and agriculture. They created large, complex earthen mounds used for burials, temples, and ceremonial purposes. The Mississippian culture reached its peak around 1000 CE, when their cities were among the largest in North America. The Mississippians were skilled farmers, growing corn, beans, and squash, and their agricultural techniques allowed them to build large communities and engage in trade. The Mississippian culture was highly organized, with a centralized authority that oversaw the construction of mounds and the administration of trade. The Mississippian people also had a rich spiritual life, with their religions focused on the worship of natural forces, the sun, and the earth. As we travel through these diverse regions, we see how the indigenous peoples of North America adapted to the harsh environments they lived in. From the desert to the Great Plains, from the mountains to the rivers, these tribes developed sophisticated survival strategies that allowed them to live in harmony with the land. Their connection to the earth, the animals, and the spirits was central to their way of life, and their survival depended on their deep understanding of the natural world. As we journey north to the cold, rugged regions of the Arctic and subarctic, we come across the Inuit and Chippewayan tribes, whose survival depended on their extraordinary adaptability and deep understanding of the harsh environment around them. The Inuit, who inhabited the frozen landscapes of Alaska, Canada, and Greenland, are perhaps the best-known example of human resilience in the face of extreme conditions. The Inuit people are masters of survival in the frozen tundra, where temperatures can plunge to extreme lows, and the land is covered in ice for most of the year. To protect themselves from the harsh cold, the Inuit developed clothing made from animal skins, particularly seal skin and caribou hides, which were designed to provide insulation against the cold and wind. Their clothing was not only functional but also incredibly efficient, with layers designed to trap warmth and protect against frostbite. The Inuit lived in igloos, temporary snow houses, during the winter months, where they could shelter from the harsh winds and snowstorms. These igloos were made from blocks of snow, which is a surprisingly effective insulator against the cold. They also used skin tents, known as tupiks, in the summer months, made from animal skins stretched over a wooden frame. Survival for the Inuit meant not only battling the cold, but also navigating the ice and snow to find food. The Inuit were expert hunters, and they relied on sea mammals such as seals, walrus, and whales for food, tools, and materials for clothing. Hunting in the Arctic required exceptional skills and patience. The Inuit also hunted caribou, polar bears, and foxes, and they used traps and harpoons to catch their prey. The Inuit even developed special techniques for ice fishing, using spear-like tools to catch fish through holes drilled into the ice. The Inuit were also excellent navigators and used the stars, sun, and landmarks to find their way across the snow-covered landscape. They were able to travel long distances across the frozen wilderness using dog sleds and later, snowmobiles. Like the Inuit, the Chippewayan, a tribe of Algonquian peoples who lived in the subarctic, were skilled at surviving in extreme cold. The Chippewayan built their homes from birch bark and wood during the summer months, and used animal skins to make winter shelters. They lived in the forests and taiga, where they hunted moose, caribou, and bears, and fished in the numerous lakes and rivers that crisscrossed their land. Their survival also depended on the seasons, as they followed the migration patterns of the caribou and other animals. Caribou hunting was a significant part of their diet, and the Chippewayan used every part of the animal, from meat for food to hide for clothing and bones for tools. Like the Inuit, the Chippewayan had a deep spiritual connection to the animals they hunted, believing that the spirits of the animals would guide them in their hunts and ensure the success of their harvests. Spirituality was a significant part of the Chippewayan culture. They believed that the world was inhabited by spirits, and their ceremonies were meant to honour these spirits and ensure a harmonious relationship with the land and its creatures. The Chippewayan practiced vision quests and shamanistic rituals, and they had a deep understanding of the medicinal plants and herbs found in the forests and rivers. These practices helped them maintain their health and ensure their survival in the harsh conditions of the subarctic. As we move to the Great Lakes region, we encounter the Ojibwa, also known as Chippewa, who lived in the forests and lakes of Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Ontario. The Ojibwa were experts at hunting, fishing, and gathering, and they lived in wigwams, small dome-shaped homes made from birch bark and willow. The Ojibwa people were skilled at building canoes, which allowed them to navigate the many lakes and rivers in the region. The Ojibwa were also known for their agricultural practices. They grew corn, beans, and squash in the fertile soils around the Great Lakes and used the Three Sisters technique of planting these crops together. This method was highly effective, as it allowed the plants to support each other. Corn grew tall to provide support for the beans, while the squash helped to keep the soil moist and free of weeds. The Ojibwa were deeply connected to the natural world, and their spiritual beliefs reflected this connection. They believed in the power of the spirits of the land, the animals, and the elements, and they held ceremonies and dances to honour them. The Ojibwa also had a rich tradition of storytelling, passing down their history, myths, and spiritual teachings to younger generations. As we move southward toward the southeast, the focus shifts to the Muskogee Creek and Cherokee tribes, whose resilience and adaptability to their environment are remarkable. The Muskogee Creek, originally from the southeastern United States, developed a deeply integrated way of life that involved hunting, agriculture, and trade. They inhabited the fertile lands along the Alabama, Georgia, and Florida regions, where they grew corn, beans, and squash, the staples of their diet, and also harvested wild rice from local rivers and lakes. The Muskogee people's knowledge of the land and their agricultural techniques allowed them to thrive in an environment that many others would have struggled to adapt to. They built villages with wattle and daub houses, using natural resources from the land around them, including wood and clay, which was plentiful in the area. Their villages were typically located near rivers and wetlands, allowing them access to both fresh water and abundant fish and game. The Muskogee Creek people, much like the Hopi and Zuni of the Southwest, were spiritually attuned to the land. Their spiritual beliefs were closely tied to the natural world, and their ceremonies were essential for maintaining balance and harmony. The green corn ceremony, a harvest festival to celebrate the first fruits of the season, was one of their most important spiritual events. During this ceremony, they offered thanks to the spirits of the land for the abundant crops, and the event was marked by dancing, feasting, and the renewal of social and community bonds. The Cherokee people, one of the most powerful tribes of the southeast, had a deep knowledge of both agriculture and hunting. They lived in settlements near rivers and streams, where they had easy access to water for irrigation and fishing. The Cherokee relied heavily on corn and beans as their main food sources, but they were also excellent hunters, and they hunted deer, bear, wild turkey, and other animals in the vast forests around them. The Cherokee were also highly skilled in craftsmanship, creating tools, weapons, and clothing from the wood, leather, and skins of the animals they hunted. Their clothing was primarily made from deerskin, and they used flint and stone to create tools for survival. Basket weaving was another important craft, and the Cherokee produced intricate, durable baskets that were used for a variety of purposes, from carrying food to ceremonial offerings. Like many other tribes, the Cherokee had a spiritual connection to the earth and animals, and their beliefs were reflected in their daily practices. They believed in a great spirit that watched over them and the world, and they held ceremonies to honour this spirit. The Cherokee had a rich oral tradition, passing down stories, myths, and lessons to younger generations. Their stories often centered around themes of balance, respect for nature, and the importance of family and community. Further south, the Seminole people of Florida developed a unique blend of agriculture, hunting, and fishing practices. The Seminole lived in the Everglades, a vast network of swamps and wetlands. where their ability to navigate the mangrove forests and cypress swamps was crucial for survival. They relied on small game hunting, fishing, and gathering wild plants to supplement their diet. Their ability to thrive in the Everglades with its challenging environment was a testament to their resourcefulness and deep connection to the land. The Seminole were also skilled traders, exchanging furs, alligator hides and other goods with neighbouring tribes and European settlers. As with the Cherokee and Muskogee, the Seminole people also had a strong spiritual life, with a deep respect for the natural world and a belief in the power of the spirits of the land, water and animals. Ceremonies such as the green corn dance were important to their spiritual practices, and they continued to perform these rituals to maintain harmony and balance within their communities. As we travel through these different regions, from the southeast to the Great Basin, we see how each tribe's connection to the land and their knowledge of nature helped them survive in environments that seemed impossible to outsiders. Whether they were navigating the Great Plains, farming in the southwest, or fishing in the southeast, the indigenous peoples of North America lived in harmony with the land in ways that allowed them to thrive for thousands of years. Each tribe, whether the Muskogee, Cherokee, Seminole or others, developed their own survival strategies, but all shared a deep respect for the earth, the animals, and the spiritual world that sustained them. Their wisdom and resilience continue to inspire us today, reminding us of the deep connections between humans and the natural world. As we move southward toward the southeast, the focus shifts to the Muskogee Creek and Cherokee tribes, whose resilience and adaptability to their environment are remarkable. The Muskogee Creek, originally from the southeastern United States, developed a deeply integrated way of life that involved hunting, agriculture and trade. They inhabited the fertile lands along the Alabama, Georgia and Florida regions, where they grew corn, beans and squash, the staples of their diet, and also harvested wild rice from local rivers and lakes. The Muskogee people's knowledge of the land and their agricultural techniques allowed them to thrive in an environment that many others would have struggled to adapt to. They built villages with wattle and daub houses, using natural resources from the land around them, including wood and clay, which was plentiful in the area. Their villages were typically located near rivers and wetlands, allowing them access to both fresh water and abundant fish and game. The Muskogee Creek people, much like the Hopi and Zuni of the Southwest, were spiritually attuned to the land. Their spiritual beliefs were closely tied to the natural world, and their ceremonies were essential for maintaining balance and harmony. The Green Corn Ceremony, a harvest festival to celebrate the first fruits of the season, was one of their most important spiritual events. During this ceremony, they offered thanks to the spirits of the land for the abundant crops, and the event was marked by dancing, feasting, and the renewal of social and community bonds. The Cherokee people, one of the most powerful tribes of the southeast, had a deep knowledge of both agriculture and hunting. They lived in settlements near rivers and streams, where they had easy access to water for irrigation and fishing. The Cherokee relied heavily on corn and beans as their main food sources, but they were also excellent hunters, and they hunted deer, bear, wild turkey, and other animals in the vast forests around them. The Cherokee were also highly skilled in craftsmanship, creating tools, weapons, and clothing from the wood, leather, and skins of the animals they hunted. Their clothing was primarily made from deerskin, and they used flint and stone to create tools for survival. Basket weaving was another important craft, and the Cherokee produced intricate, durable baskets that were used for a variety of purposes, from carrying food to ceremonial offerings. Like many other tribes, the Cherokee had a spiritual connection to the earth and animals, and their beliefs were reflected in their daily practices. They believed in a great spirit that watched over them and the world, and they held ceremonies to honor this spirit. The Cherokee had a rich oral tradition, passing down stories, myths, and lessons to younger generations. Their stories often centered around themes of balance, respect for nature, and the importance of family and community. Further south, the Seminole people of Florida developed a unique blend of agriculture, hunting, and fishing practices. The Seminole lived in the Everglades, a vast network of swamps and wetlands, where their ability to navigate the mangrove forests and cypress swamps was crucial for survival. They relied on small game hunting, fishing, and gathering wild plants to supplement their diet. Their ability to thrive in the Everglades with its challenging environment was a testament to their resourcefulness and deep connection to the land. The Seminole were also skilled traders, exchanging furs, alligator hides and other goods with neighbouring tribes and European settlers. As with the Cherokee and Muskogee, the Seminole people also had a strong spiritual life, with a deep respect for the natural world and a belief in the power of the spirits of the land, water, and animals. Ceremonies such as the green corn dance were important to their spiritual practices, and they continued to perform these rituals to maintain harmony and balance within their communities. As we travel through these different regions, from the southeast to the Great Basin, we see how each tribe's connection to the land and their knowledge of nature helped them survive in environments that seemed impossible to outsiders. Whether they were navigating the Great Plains, farming in the southwest, or fishing in the southeast, the indigenous peoples of North America lived in harmony with the land in ways that allowed them to thrive for thousands of years. Each tribe, whether the Muskogee, Cherokee, Seminole, or others, developed their own survival strategies, but all shared a deep respect for the earth, the animals, and the spiritual world that sustained them. Their wisdom and resilience continue to inspire us today, reminding us of the deep connections between humans and the natural world. Survival in the high Arctic, Inuit, and the power of ice. As we venture into the extreme cold of the high Arctic, the Inuit people stand as extraordinary examples of human survival in one of the most hostile environments on Earth. Living in Alaska, Canada, and Greenland, the Inuit have adapted to the severe cold, long winters, and months of darkness that characterize the Arctic landscape. The Inuit survival skills are deeply intertwined with the natural resources of their environment. Hunting sea mammals such as seals, walrus, and whales was, and still is, central to their survival. They used every part of the animals, from meat for food, to bones for tools and skins for clothing. The Inuit developed incredibly warm and functional clothing made from seal fur, caribou hide, and polar bear skins. These materials were used to create parkas, mittens, and boots that not only protected them from the freezing temperatures, but also allowed for movement across the icy terrain. The Inuit are perhaps best known for their snow houses, or igloos, which were expertly constructed to provide shelter against the biting wind and snowstorms. Made from blocks of snow, these structures provided excellent insulation. Despite the frigid temperatures outside, the igloos could stay warm inside due to the insulating properties of snow. Igloos were surprisingly effective shelters, capable of maintaining warmth despite the extreme cold of the Arctic. The Inuit were also highly skilled navigators. They utilized the stars, sun, and natural landmarks to travel across the icy landscape, often with nothing more than their dog sleds and sled dogs. In this vast treeless environment, finding direction could be a challenge, but the Inuit used their acute knowledge of the stars and natural signs to guide their journeys. Life on the Great Plains, the Sioux and the buffalo. Moving southwards to the Great Plains, we encounter the Sioux, Cheyenne, and Arapaho, who thrived on the open grasslands and vast forests that stretched across much of central North America. These tribes are synonymous with the buffalo, not just as a source of food, but as a symbol of life and survival. For the Sioux, buffalo hunting was the cornerstone of survival. It provided everything they needed for their food, clothing, shelter, and tools. Buffalo hides were used for teepees, their portable homes made from wooden poles and buffalo skin, which could be easily assembled and disassembled as the tribe moved with the herds. The buffalo also provided meat for sustenance, bones for tools, and fur for clothing. The Sioux were skilled hunters, employing sophisticated techniques to hunt the massive herds that roamed the plains. The Sioux and their plains tribes were also highly strategic in battle, using the buffalo hunt as a model for coordination and teamwork. The tribe's warriors would often work together, forming a circle around the herd to trap and kill the buffalo, ensuring a successful hunt. Their bow and arrow skills were finely honed, and their horsemanship was unmatched. For the Sioux, the buffalo was not only a vital part of their physical survival, but also held spiritual significance. They believed the buffalo was a gift from the spirit world and held a sacred place in their rituals. Every part of the buffalo was used, symbolizing the tribe's deep respect for nature and its offerings. The Plains tribes and the connection to nature. The Sioux, like many other Plains tribes, had a profound spiritual connection to nature. They believed that the world was alive with spirits, and everything from the buffalo to the wind had a spiritual essence. The Sioux conducted ceremonies such as the sun dance, which was a powerful spiritual ritual that involved dancing, singing, and offerings to the Great Spirit to ensure the tribe's survival and well-being. The sun dance was an important part of their healing process, and it represented the circle of life and the interconnectedness of all beings. Their relationship with the buffalo was also marked by the ceremony of the buffalo hunt, where they honoured the spirit of the buffalo and asked for its continued presence in their lives. This ceremony reflected the Sioux's belief that their survival was intrinsically linked to the land and the animals that lived on it. The Plains tribes were also known for their art and craftsmanship. The Sioux created beautiful beaded garments, blankets, and moccasins that were not only practical but also decorative. Their artwork often depicted the buffalo, horses, and spiritual symbols, reflecting their reverence for the animals and forces of nature that sustained them. The southeastern tribes, agriculture and spirituality in the forests. Moving eastward, we come to the southeastern tribes such as the Cherokee, Creek, and Choctaw, who developed sophisticated agricultural systems in the fertile river valleys of the southeast United States. These tribes were expert farmers, growing corn, beans, squash, and tobacco. They also raised sunflowers and other crops that provided both food and materials for creating medicines and rituals. The Cherokee, in particular, were known for their complex societal structures. They lived in wattle and daub houses, which were built using wood, clay, and bark. These structures were particularly suited to the southeastern climate, providing protection from the heat of summer and the cold of winter. The Cherokee were also known for their craftsmanship. They created ceramics, baskets, and woven mats, which were used in both daily life and ceremonial practices. Like the Iroquois to the north, the Cherokee had a deeply spiritual connection to the land. They believed in a great spirit who governed the natural world and kept balance in the universe. Their green corn ceremony, like the Iroquois' version, was a significant event in their calendar. It marked the beginning of the harvest season and included dances, prayers, and rituals to ensure a successful harvest. As we conclude our journey through the various indigenous tribes of North America, we are reminded of the remarkable strength, resilience, and wisdom that these peoples possessed. From the icy expanse of the Arctic to the hot, vast plains, from the dense forests of the southeast to the rugged southwest, the indigenous tribes not only survived in some of the harshest environments on Earth, but thrived, building rich cultures, complex societies, and spiritual traditions that have withstood the test of time. The Inuit, living in the freezing cold of the Arctic, were masters of survival and adaptability, crafting intricate tools, clothing, and shelters from the very environment around them. Their igloos provided warmth in sub-zero temperatures. Their clothing from sealskin and polar bear fur allowed them to survive the relentless cold, and their dog sleds helped them navigate the icy wilderness. Their spiritual connection to the land, animals, and spirits guided their way of life, ensuring they lived in harmony with the land that sustained them. Meanwhile, in the Great Plains, the Sioux and other plains tribes demonstrated an intimate understanding of the buffalo and the environment. The buffalo was not just a source of food and material resources, but a sacred symbol of survival. The Sioux's mastery in hunting, tracking, and horseback riding helped them build powerful mobile communities. Their spirituality, rooted in deep respect for the Great Spirit, the animals, and nature, was reflected in their practices, from the green corn ceremony to their warrior cultures. The Plains tribes understood that their survival was a spiritual journey, and the land and animals were their partners in life. In the southeast, the Cherokee, Muscogee, Creek, and other tribes mastered the art of agriculture, growing corn, beans, and squash that formed the basis of their diet. Their villages were constructed with an eye to the environment, ensuring sustainability and providing shelter from both summer heat and winter cold. Their ability to live in harmony with the land was not just practical but spiritual, with ceremonies like the green corn dance that honoured the earth and the spirits. The Cherokee even developed a written language and a structured government system long before European settlers arrived, demonstrating their advanced cultural and societal structures. The Southwest tribes, such as the Hopi and Navajo, were equally remarkable in their survival skills. They adapted to the harsh desert environment by developing advanced irrigation systems, growing crops in an arid land. The Navajo mastered silverwork, creating beautiful jewelry and art that has become legendary. They understood the importance of balance in the natural world and lived with a deep connection to their environment, using the land and animals around them in sustainable ways. A shared legacy. What unites all these tribes across such vast and diverse landscapes is their resilience, resourcefulness, and respect for the land and natural world. Their ability to survive, thrive, and develop rich, complex cultures in the most challenging environments is nothing short of extraordinary. Each tribe's culture, from the art they produced to the rituals they performed, reflected an intimate relationship with nature, an understanding that every part of the environment had a purpose and a spirit. Despite centuries of colonization, disease, and displacement, the legacy of these tribes endures. Their stories, their wisdom, their survival strategies have shaped the world in ways that cannot be measured by mere history. They continue to inspire, to teach, and to remind us of the deep, often forgotten connection between humanity and the earth. The lasting impact. Today, many indigenous tribes across North America still face challenges, historical injustices, land loss, and cultural erasure, but their spirit, their stories, and their wisdom continue to be a beacon of hope. The tribe's deep understanding of sustainability, community, and spirituality offers valuable lessons as the world grapples with climate change, overconsumption, and environmental degradation. Indigenous peoples have always understood the importance of living in balance with the land, and their knowledge and practices hold the keys to creating a more sustainable future for all. As we look back at their stories and achievements, we find that the tribes of North America were not merely survivors, they were teachers. They demonstrated how to live in harmony with nature, how to be resourceful in the face of adversity, and how to create societies that were not only strong, but also spiritually connected to the land. Conclusion: the spirit of survival. The indigenous peoples of North America have shown us the meaning of true survival. Not just surviving the elements, but thriving in a way that honors the world around us. Their legacy is not just one of resilience in the face of hardship, but one of deep respect for the land, the animals, and the spiritual forces that shape our world. The next time we step outside into nature, whether in the mountains, the plains, the forests, or even the desert, we can remember the wisdom of those who came before us. The indigenous peoples of North America have left us a legacy of survival, harmony, and respect for the earth. It is up to us to continue that legacy, ensuring that their knowledge and way of life are preserved and honored for generations to come.